In the late 1970s, I went down to Socorro, New Mexico, to a doctor friend of mine who was going to help me with my back. And he says, you know, I can't find anything wrong with your back, so I'm going to hypnotize you. And let's see if we can find out what's going on here. So I figured I was a pretty good candidate for it. So he did. And then this whole strange thing happened, you know. All of a sudden, this voice says, this really very kind voice says, would you like to know different things? Would you like to know about the nature of reality? Would you like to know about God? And so on. And Dr. Aiken, who was the doctor, said, absolutely, just a moment. And so he went and got his tape recorder, and then we just started. And then he would ask questions, and then they got answered. And all of a sudden, everybody was talking about this thing called channeling, which I knew nothing about because it does not feel like channeling. It feels just like a wonderful natural state of expansion, just so broad and so vast and so still yet alive. It's unexplainable. But anyway, out of that silent space came these words, and they were answers to some really profound questions. And then people would say, oh, well, it's really you, Mary-Margaret. And I would say, wait a minute, do you really think that I know about the nature of God and about the destiny of life and of the world and what's the purpose? These were way beyond any of my expectations of knowledge. And so as the years went on, more and more and more people got interested, and so then there it was. And the simplicity of it was that I don't know what it was. The only reason that I kept on going, and remember, I was a student of Zen at the time, and Zen looks down upon this kind of action, and so, you know, it's makyo, it's made up stuff, you know, don't pay attention. And so I was tempted to drop it, but Dr. Aiken wouldn't allow that. He was actually excited about the whole thing. So it was his motion, his excitement that moved me forward to do this. And then the other thing, I think more than anything that I noticed, was that people who followed the simple feeling of the words, not even necessarily the instruction of the words, the feeling of the words. What was happening was that they were calming down, they were loving the moment of who they were more, they had more courage, they had a sense that there was something endlessly resourceful in them that they could tap on their own. All I knew is that it was harmless. It was absolutely filled with compassion. And it seemed to know. There was a knowing there that I would now call something like divine intelligence, you know, call it whatever you want. But there is something in us that knows, and it just came forward. And what was really clear, and this really, I think, needs to be understood, it was nothing special. This is the thing I would ask any of us to, those of us who might emulate certain teachers and so forth. I mean, there's nothing wrong with loving someone, but please know that if the teaching doesn't point back to you, that you are the way to the truth of your own light, if it doesn't hold that, then I would really ask you to question it, because in the end, you've only got you. You know, in the dark of the night, you know, the hour of the wolf, you know, 4 o'clock in the morning, you wake up and you're afraid, and you've only got you. And words, other people's words don't do it. It has to be a resonance that comes from you. And that was what Bartholomew taught, whatever that was ever and only the teaching. Obviously, you can see the built-in problem with this kind of thing, you know, as it became more famous and was moving around the world, and people were, you know, trying to lift me, Mary-Margaret, up to some height, or Bartholomew up to some height. The built-in problem was always there. And I will tell you that my prayer every time I opened my mouth was, in any way I begin to be confused about what's going on here and think for a moment that this is coming out of my limited ego and my limited understanding, then whatever you have to do, stop it. The point here is really clear. There are no special people. Bartholomew said it again, there are no favorites. And that means there are no favorites. There are no, either we believe this or we don't. And if there are no favorites, then certainly Bartholomew is not a favorite. Mary-Margaret's not a favorite. You know, and you can say, well, then does that mean Jesus and Buddha were not favorites? And I will tell you Bartholomew's answer to that. He used to say to us, listen, here's the deal. He never spoke like this. I'm going to paraphrase for him. Understand this. What you're looking for is to be absolutely ordinary. And then we all go, oh. And then he would follow it up with, well, you know, like Christ and Buddha were ordinary. And of course, now the confusion sets in. But then the clarity was that the awareness that we call the Christ and that of the Buddha also carried the absolute in its basic true form, carried the same truth, that there is no such thing as something to be honored. Everything is sacred. Bartholomew's mantra, everything is sacred. Everything is sacred. People would say, I don't understand. And he would say, then spend the rest of your life figuring it out. Everything is sacred. So find that out and be free. Find it out. And we say, be free of what? And he would say, be free of the illusion that there is a separate you that is somehow in control of this situation, that can rise itself up to some grand way of knowing, because you are the knowing itself. You are the knowing itself. The question is, who is this you? Who is this you? And so, of course, 18 and a half years of answering that one question, who are you? Who are you? In fact, you know, he would often quote Ramana Maharshi, who, as most people know, who are into this kind of thing, was very much into the question, who am I? And people would just get furious when this would arise. I can't do it, I can't do it. And the laughter would just arise out of Bartholomew, or whatever you want to say, out of this absolute ridiculous statement. Oh, I see. So you don't know that you are here. You're not aware that you're here. Well, of course I'm aware that I'm here, they would say. And then he would reply, well, that's it. That's it. Are you aware? Are you aware that you're here? Can you see? Can you hear? Can you feel? Are you breathing? Is the blood moving around? What's happening? What's here? What's here? And they say, no, 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 no. And he would say, too simple? Too ordinary? Too ordinary? So, because the thrust was to be ordinary, it was very difficult to allow anyone to, in the slightest way, try to make this thing something special. There was never any feeling here that it was special, but at the same time, I have to say this, that there was nothing but a feeling of absolute awe and gratitude. And you can say to me, well, if you say awe, this indicates something grander than you, and I'd say no, the awe was that it was only one. That was the awe. The awe was, there is only this one. And not even that. Not even that. And with that kind of delight pulsating through every time I opened my mouth, there was never any question of elevating anything up to anything other than, hey, right now, right here, just as it is, this is it. Fall in love with this. Not with something imagined in your mind, but with this. Right here. This. This. One of the obvious questions that has to arise here is, okay, if this is so ordinary, if this is so obvious, then more people don't know it? How come there isn't more knowing of this? What is it that would keep it? And the answer is, again, from Bartholomew and also from the years that I've spent since Bartholomew, to come to know with the assurance past all thought that what has captured is the imagining of the movements of the mind. The mind's job is to move. And as it moves, that which is awareness, this is tricky, because now we're talking like there's two things. There's moving mind and then awareness. So bear with me for a moment here, because there is the moving mind, and then there is that which is aware of the moving mind. So immediately you say two things, and I say, let's wait. So as you become as awareness, when you begin to sense that this moving mind does not bring you the peace, the understanding, or the sheer courage to live another day, when you finally reach the understanding that the limitation of mind is limited, then this starts to happen. You start to begin to question the basic thought. Are my thoughts going to deliver what I'm asking them to deliver? Which is peace and harmony and beauty and wonder and acceptance and love of all. Are my thoughts going to do it? And in an instant, any introspection tells you, of course not. Because as you watch, every thought moves from one thing to another. And you do know, for every thought over on the right, you have a thought on the left. It's called the world of duality. That's what we have here. And so as you focus, and remember, it's an ever-moving target, and it's very fascinating. And the hope is that someday it will take shape and hold steady, that this mind, this ever-moving mind, will hold steady. And in that holding steady, I'll know. Well, what you decide is, finally, if you try it for enough years, that you can steady the mind a little bit when you're seated in meditation. You get up, you go outside, get in your car, somebody cuts in front of you in the freeway, it's all over. You know, you finally get that there's something else going on here. And when you begin to just go deeply inside in answer to the question of why don't we do it, it's because we believe that the motion of the mind will deliver. And when we find out for ourselves that it doesn't, then we begin asking the real questions, which is there a place other than the mind that is present right now that can deliver? Is there something that can deliver? And then there it is. There it is. Because that is the question beyond the question of who am I? Another way of putting it is, what's here? What's here that never moves, that's ever present, never shifts, is ever what? Is ever the light that allows anything to be seen, anything to be heard, anything to be thought, anything to be anything. When you begin to see that you are looking for the light that allows everything to be illumined, then you're onto it, which means that you can be looking at, in Bartholomew's words, a maggoty cat. Your beloved cat is dying with maggots all over it in front of you. Can you love that image with the same intensity as a beautiful vase of flowers? Until you can see that there is an absolute sacredness in both. Until you can see that, you're not done. And here is the promise that Bartholomew gave us that I would like to just pass on, which is, he who seeks will find. Meaning, the one who has the courage and the dedication and the focus and the intent to keep turning within. All right, show me, please. What is it about that act that is sacred? Show me. Who am I? Who are they? What is here? What's just those simple inward questioning, just done without allowing the mind to get in there and answer. And it's done so simply because eventually the light of the truth reveals itself. But And here's the truth. Are you courageous enough to believe that? Because that is really where it lies. Are you courageous enough to test the question? Is there something other than the ever-moving mind that will catch me if I abandon my focus on my thinking mind? Is there something? And that, my friends, we all have to answer for ourselves. And we can stop middle ground and pick up a religion, pick up a teacher, pick up a teaching, and hold it and say, this will do. But eventually, that spacious floor has to give way, and you find yourself in free fall again, because this is for me, the beauty of living a life. This is one thing you can do until the last day of your time on planet Earth. You can do this. Just keep on going within. Be still in the mind. Let thoughts come and go. Not a problem. There is that within which pulls it to itself. In other words, awareness is seeking itself. And in my experience, and in Bartholomew's words, consciousness gets what consciousness wants. Yeah. Bartholomew made a distinction between awareness as that which is the silent, still, brilliant, luminescent beingness of all, and consciousness, which is the active principle of that. You don't have to believe that kind of thing, because they both end up being the same thing. But understand this: once the thought arises, I want to know, once that thought arises, it forms an incredible power of its own, because it is the truth of why we're here. In my experience, it's simply to reveal the truth of it. How much do we know? How much have we learned? You know, Bartholomew used to say, there's only two questions that matter. How much have you loved? How much have you learned? And when it comes to the learning part, he wasn't talking about Shakespeare's sonnets. He was talking about how much have you come to know of the truth that awareness is simply seeking itself. And that is a power and a wonder that is way beyond the limited mind to even attempt to play with. So trust, just trust. There is, to quote Robert Adams, a power that knows the way. So then here comes the next obvious question about all of this, which is, so then in 1995, the whole thing ends. We were given 5 years. We were told 5 years prior that it was going to end, which was a tremendous gift, because our lives had to be realigned in a totally new way. So the question that I've been asked as Mary-Margaret is, then what? What was my experience after the ending of all of this magnificent life? And the truth of it was difficult. It was as if the best friend you've ever had in the world has gone, and you had all the questions, and now you had to find your own answers. But the last thing that was said to us was, if you want to find me, then you have to go where I am, which is in the depth of the heart of your true being. Go there and you will find me. So in those months after, in the loneliness of that all, the words kept coming back to me, and I thought, I've got to do something with my life. You know, in a way it felt like I had done the most successful thing I could ever do, the most meaningful, the most wonderful, and now what? You know, is my life over? You know, what could be better than that? So all I had was his trace statement to us. So I decided to take it up as my inner focus, whatever you want to call it. And so I did, continually using as much of the teachings as I could to pull myself down deeper and deeper with this understanding and his absolute guarantee that it was there. And the more time I spent in the simplicity of that, the clearer it became. But what was interesting for me is, if I could put it bluntly, a lot of people weren't interested in Mary-Margaret now that Bartholomew was gone. It was just like, well, she's done it and that's finished. So I had to redo my entire life because the belief was that I was on my own. That was the thought. He's left, I'm on my own. Now, of course, this is absolutely contrary to everything he ever said. But the mind still had it that way, that he's gone, I've got to go find him. None of that proved to be true. None of that. Nothing had gone. There was nothing to find because everything had always been there, prior to him coming and after him coming, and the whole time that he was there. These were all just moving objects within the field of brilliant, magnificent, absolute wonder of being itself. All of these events were coming and going. In what? In what had always been there, which is what he was pointing to the entire time. He was never pointing at himself and said, "Follow me and you shall be saved." There was none of that. So what was always present was finally seen, and I say finally because it was years, finally was seen, oh, I see now. Ah, and then the eye disappears, and there's nothing but seeing, and there's nothing but experiencing, and then it's the awareness that everything in the experiencing, it comes, it goes, this is interesting, that's interesting, it just changes so that there's no particular focus necessary, nothing particular needs to happen. Although there can arise, I want this, I wish this weren't true, I'd like it to be this way. But, with just an instant of almost like a shaking of the head of awakening in the moment, and you're back to, wait, where could it go? Where could it possibly go? Of course it's here. And then in that moment, there it is. Again, what has always been here is that which is experiencing everything. So you could say it has two aspects. There are no two anythings, but we'll pretend. There is the aspect of the experiencing, and then there is also the aspect of everything that is moving, being created and dissolving all the time within the experiencing. And it seems to be two things, but it isn't. It isn't. And it's seen. It's seen. Everything is experiencing and being experienced. And the simplicity, again, is where would this not be? So the hard part, the loneliness, the great humor accompanying it, and the having to adjust my life from being filled with the most wonderful action and energy and people and travel and wonder. And then now there's what? Well, there's me. And so since that was all, I don't mean that I didn't have a wonderful support system, because I did. But in the middle of the greatest support, it still is us. We are the way to the truth of our own light. And so I had to make the journey back. And one of the things that carried me the most was the absolute, irrefutable knowing that the light of being not only exists, but allows everything else to exist. And in that simplicity, everything became gently obvious. And then you stop worrying about all the things that you worry about, because you realize that a worry rises and then it dissolves like the mist, and then another one arises, it dissolves like the mist, and one begins to be aware of that within which the mist is arising. And how hard is that? You know, can you see me? That's it. Can you hear me? That's it. Are you sitting alone in misery? That's it. Are you miserable? The misery's it. Are you happy? The happiness is it. Because the idea got broken down over and over again. You do not have to drop away from all of your problems in order to find out that you are this amazing light of being. But this is the idea. I have to get rid of my problems. I have to be, I've heard this again and again. Well, you can't possibly understand this until you have a balanced psyche, until everything is in alignment. And I want to say to you, wait a minute. Let's just talk about one of the great names that's come forward now, which is, of course, Eckhart Tolle. And what does this very wonderful man say to us? He says that he was suicidal. He was about to kill himself when this arose. He didn't have his psyche all in alignment. He hadn't been to therapy for 25 years. I mean, I don't even think he was old enough to have been to therapy for 25 years. But whatever the case, it wasn't that he was all psychologically aligned. In some funny way, people who have wobbly psyche alignment seem to kind of tumble into this more often than people who have it all together and who know where they're going and to know how it's done. You know, this is a very playful universe we're in here, and anything can happen, and anything does happen. And again, to quote Bartholomew, there are no rules. There are no rules. There are no favorites, and there are no rules. So out of that comes this, don't wait. The idea that you have to get rid of your problems. For example, here, this is something I hear a lot. Well, I'm too depressed. I'm too depressed. When I'm not so depressed, then I'll start looking. And I say, you've got it wrong. Now that you are depressed, good, go look. Now. I mean, if you want to go to a therapist, that's your business. But now, take the power of that depression and push it and make it part, which is what I had to do. Because I was sad. I was very sad. And out of that sadness, which I couldn't get rid of, couldn't talk myself out of, I had to use the pain and the power of that. And it kept pulling deeper and deeper. And finally I saw that it ended up being the greatest gift of all. So his going ended up being the greatest gift it could possibly have been. So I say to anyone, I don't care what your situation, I don't care if you're 2 days away from dying, do it. Do it. It doesn't take time. It does not take time. It simply takes doing. Doing what? Stop looking outside and just dare to dive inside and ask the question, what's there? Who am I? What is the reality of this moment? And the power of those questions pulls you down, and the answer's there. Good morning.
Morning.
The next meeting will be August 29th. But watch out for the next one, because there won't be one. September, there's no meeting, because I will be in Kalamazoo, Michigan the week before, and the first hour of that workshop will be the next day. I'd like to start by bossing people around. In your designated seat there. Thank you. So, friend Bartholomew sent me this, and I found it very moving. I don't think that we can actually understand with our minds, but if we could just listen. It's a short sentence, and it's by someone named Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. So obviously this is of Jewish derivation, and it's beautiful. And here it is. Life is a very narrow bridge between two eternities. Be not afraid. Life is a very narrow bridge between two eternities. Be not afraid. There are so many ways that one can understand with your heart what that means. That life is this narrow bridge between two vast eternities. But what I would like to bring forward is a more immediate intimacy with those beautiful words, which would be this. Every moment, this is the possibility. To move from the frustrations, the confusion, the pain, the sorrow, the fear of that slice of thing that we call life, and in an instant can move to what he says as two eternities. So what my beloved friend found was that morning she had been listening to Bartholomew audio. And in it, some of you might remember, he talks about the mind and life, our life that we live, as this gaussier curtain, remember? It's 1 foot tall and it's 3 feet wide, and that is our mind. And if you wish to put it this way, that is our life. It is our very life. This is curtain. And what she noticed, and she had a wonderful, massive, whatever you want to call it, around us, which is just so beautiful. And as best as I can interpret it, we'll just stretch it as big as she did. She began to feel, in the moment, she realized that she was upset. She was upset. She was upset. And in that moment, she just simply remembered what she had heard that morning. And she just sat with the movement of the curtain. And she named it. I am angry. I am frustrated. I am whatever arose. She just allowed it to be present. I don't even think she said I am. I think she's one of those who would have said frustration is present. Anger is present. Dissatisfaction is present, whatever it would be. And what she found is what Bartholomew has always said. One can focus on the fluttering movement of the curtain, which is endless, because there's always another breath of something coming. Or, in that instant, she, and therefore you and me and anyone, can in that moment move from that little slice, can move in an instant to the open vastness. Now, the mind takes hold of what I just said and says, well, how do I do that? Give me a way to do that. How can I do that? And as you know, you've been listening long enough, you're all very patient, beautiful people. The answer is you have just presented the problem, which is your mind has allowed you to move to the thought, how can I do this? So we would like to address the fact that what this beloved rabbi calls two eternities is simply, in the way that we would present it, it is that spacious, ever-present, open, ever-extending awareness that is always present, that surrounds and imbues and moves through and allows the curtain of motion to be present. This is the opportunity of every moment. And it doesn't have to matter what the subject is, what you're afraid of, what you're angry at, what you think is impossible. How will I solve this? This is the mind saying, how will I solve this problem? And immediately it goes to its bag of tricks. And it thinks, well, I can try this and I can try that. And all the time, if it would simply, this is all we're doing is presenting the possibility here. And here's the possibility. In that moment, instead of trying to find and struggle toward an answer, do you trust enough to simply relax and know that there is clarity in the moment. There is clarity of possible peace and quiet and calm, and out of that arising a knowing. Now the voice isn't probably, unless you're one of those that has these voices, going to say, all right, Dennis, what you will do tomorrow morning is, and then outline. But there's something about these two eternities, which in this language would be that which upholds this moving curtain. It has a name, and it's called divine intelligence. It's not called divine maybe, or divine let's try and figure it out, or divine, well, I wonder. It's called divine intelligence, and it's not of the thinking mind. So it doesn't need to speak to you in words. It speaks to you in the way that all direct transmission of energy always speaks to you, through a feeling. A feeling, a feeling, a feeling, an emotion, a movement towards something, or a movement away from something. All that's needed is to stop and to trust. This is the difficulty. The trusting. Do you trust, after all these years, do you trust that there is something that surrounds all of this confusion of what you call my life, that is ever present and ever ready if you simply come down and stop looking in the frenzied manner of mind seeking, and to just rest in the let go. And what happens is, even if you do not get an answer of I should do this, what you get is an immediate knowing that, in my words, that you are held in the arms of the beloved. That you, whatever you think yourself to be, are not alone. That it's a matter of the recognition. I don't know who it is, but somebody in the 1000th century, and I don't remember who it was, said something like, poor human, you live in a world that is filled with God and know it not. And just that very statement, and know it not. Although I would say that I understand him from the mental point of view, that the mind knows it not, but I do not believe that there isn't a part of whoever we call ourselves to be here, that doesn't know intuitively that there is something eternally present, eternally alive, eternally one with, present, ever present. You know, the difficulty with how this observation is of what's happening now in this movement toward greater understanding is that all of a sudden, now has become a place. It used to be heaven, and now it's now. You know, and it arises from a lot of people who, for example, Tolay, the power of now, the power of now. You know, other people that keep saying now, this is the buzzword, right? So it's a place. Now we have a place. Now is now. It's just like
There was heaven. Well, now there's now. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. But where does your mind go when you hear about the power of now? Unless you have read and understood deeply that it is not a place, that it is what every place is in. It is what every movement of you, every motion, every thought, every idea, every spontaneity, every fear, every anger is where all of it always is. So all of these other things arise in it. So please, let us not take the words, which were not meant to point to a location, and turn them into a location. So that there is the need to move from this moment. So what do I mean? By the way, feel free to do whatever you need to do around the world. Yes, whatever. So here comes the question then. I could just feel it arising in anybody's conscious mind. All right, fine. And then here it comes. How do I do that? How do I know that? Again, watch what the mind does. What it's already done is moved from the statement that it is here, it is in everything, it is everything, it is everything. It is in the eyes that look, it is in what is being looked at, it is in the motion of seeing that is constantly going on, or hearing. It is the aliveness that makes everything move. It is the aliveness. Now look, you know that you are sitting on a planet that is hurling itself through space. And I don't know how many miles an hour, if any of you know, fine, but I don't have to know that. But what do you experience? Do you experience yourself hurling through space? Or do you experience yourself as sitting there? And you would say, I'm not moving. Now, that's hilarious. This is how funny I want you to think this is. Because just as your mind knows totally how many times have you seen when you were in the first grade or third grade or whatever, and they showed you the movement of the planets around this and that, and they say we're moving, and we go, yeah, and then we're standing still. In our minds, we're standing still. In reality, whatever that would mean, everything is in motion. But what I'm just pointing to is right here. Just as you know, if you're asked, that this planet is hurling itself through amazing spaciousness, so we would ask you to be aware that right now, hurling itself through each moment, that allows each moment to even be seen or experienced, is exactly what you're looking for. You are looking for what is experiencing this moment. You are not a human being waiting for awareness to enter you from above, like some kind of, I don't know what, that will now be present, and you will be present in awareness. That's not the way it is. That's not the way it is, and you're smiling, so you do know that's not the way it is. It's not like that, because the very act of the body being there, it's already filled with and is awareness, consciousness. It's what it is. And what is aware of the body is what the body is made up of. And it is also, and this is very important, it is that which is experiencing anything. So my question to you is, when do you stop experiencing? When do you stop experiencing? Do you ever stop experiencing? Now you'll say, yes, of course, when I'm asleep. I'm in deep sleep, right? You can go there, right? The logical motion of the mind. Well, in deep sleep, I'm not experiencing. Now, if you talk to the so-called awake ones, that's not what they say. They say that even in that state, there is a knowing. A knowing of what? That something is existing Who do you think reports your dreams the next morning? You know, there's something going on. Who reports to you the dreams? Oh. There was something experiencing your dream, and there is something experiencing itself as awareness without object. All right? Are you following me? Awareness, are you? Awareness without object is what happens in sleep. But you wake up in the morning and do you say, I think I died last night and I woke up awake this morning? You don't say that. There's a part of you that knows that every moment of whatever space it was, there was something going on. You would never say nothing happened. But what you didn't run into was any objects. I'm talking about deep sleep. In deep sleep, there are no objects. And when there are no objects, but you know there were no objects, you wake up and you say, I had a wonderful night's rest. What does that mean? That means I didn't have any dreams. It means I slept through the whole thing. But who was there to report that you had this wonderful night? That you didn't just die and expire and float away. There is a knowing. What is that knowing? What is that? It is the experiencing itself, not the experiencer, which is object. It is the experiencing itself. It is so simple. So, whatever you say, that which I am seeking is distant. Here's the question. Who is experiencing the thought, what I'm looking for is distant? Where can you go when you are not experiencing? Where? All that we are asking is that you allow this to move into you in some way, which is the magic of why you come to things like this. Why would you give up a day and come to this beautiful, magnificent, opulent room in order to sit in these chairs? Why? Why? Because there is a part that pulls itself to these kinds of things. Why? Just to simply remind. This is the reminding. This all. There's nothing to be taught. There is nothing you need to learn. What does awareness need to learn? It is everything that is being experienced. So what does it need to learn? It knows with absolute certainty what it is. This is why when people say, I don't know, and I'll never know, and I'm going to die, and I won't know, there's nothing but laughter in the deep part of who you are. Because there is that has been watching. Tony Parsons puts it this way. He says, it's been sitting on your shoulder the entire time, watching you look for it. Now, some of you may not experience it that way, on your shoulder. Some of you experience it behind the eyes. Some of you experience it in the heart. Some of you experience it in the heart. Depending on your training, it doesn't matter. But there is a constant, intimate communion with that what you actually are, and any moment that's arising. It is, you could not experience a moment arising if it wasn't there. You couldn't experience anything if it wasn't there. It has to be there for anything to be experienced. So all that's being asked is, can you just open and allow the thought to keep on moving deeper and deeper that says something simple like, it's always here, or I wouldn't be experiencing anything. And then the great fun of being aware of experiencing, which allows you to stop worrying about the results of what you're experiencing. When you are in the middle of a problem, your mind wants to move to the past, to collect data, to the future, into fear, and to possibilities. And so all we're asking Is it realizing you can go to the past, you can go to the future? It doesn't matter, because seeing, experiencing go with everything. There's nothing to find because it's not needed. It's not that it's hard. It's just not necessary. All that's necessary is an awakening from the sleep of the idea that what is going on is not it. This is, here we go again. This is it. This is it. You are it. You are it. You are blessedly it. Nothing to be found, nothing needed. You know, they say things like, you have everything you need. And there's someone who says, well, that's easy for you to say because you don't have to pay my mortgage. And I don't have enough money for my mortgage. So, what? This isn't about what happens in the world of objects. This is about freedom. If you are doing this in order to get more money in your life, I suggest you go to a college nearby and take a course in economics. Because this isn't going to do it. This isn't about that. This is about being free from the idea that it matters if you pay your mortgage or not. This is real freedom. Not only from your mortgage, but from your health. I mean, you know, all the ideas, just think about all the fearful thoughts that await in the future. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get older, and this is going to happen. That's going to happen. I'm going to be that, and who's going to help me? Here it comes. All of that. This is about freedom from the thought that in that moment, whatever your circumstance, God has no favorites. None. That's Bartholomew 1a, right? God has no favorites. What does that mean? God has no favorites. It means that whatever is happening to you, there is the doorway, the possibility, the immense potentiality of freedom from thinking that you cannot do this, that you cannot live through this, that it will be impossible, and all of the storyline. Stop it. You want freedom? Here's freedom. To know that any moment, no matter what is happening, in that moment there is the divine wonder of being. That when you just simply remember, I am that. I am that. I am that. Something begins to happen. The ideas begin to slow down. You begin to realize that whatever this is eternal. So we're back to this beloved rabbi. Life is a very narrow bridge between two eternities. Be not afraid. Be not afraid. And that is the possibility of every moment. Not when you die, which some could read this and say, well, when this life is over, then I'll move into eternity. Well, that's true too. So if that makes you happy, we'll say that. Of course that will. Make you feel better? I hope. Good. But that's not what this is about. This is about something immediate, something so intensely intimate that it is the very, closer than hands and feet, closer than breath. What does that mean, closer than breath? It means closer than breath. It means that which gives you the opportunity to feel that you're breathing. That gives you the opportunity to know that anything is happening. It is that which registers that everything is happening. It is the divine. It is everywhere. There's nowhere to go because it's everywhere. You can go wherever you want, and that's wonderful, go. But don't forget that you're moving from one divine moment in the motion of another divine moment to another divine moment. And in essence, this is why so many of the awake ones, unless they're called to speak and then they go ahead, kind of sit around. They kind of sit around. I get some emails by people that say, well, the problem with all this is I just don't care so much about doing all the stuff that I used to think I had to do, and So I gotta just sit around and feel good. And I get done what I have to do. And somehow magically things get done. But it's just kind of easier. It's just kind of more gentle. That feeling that I have to push and do and become and make it happen. Make my life happen. There's nothing wrong with making your life happen. But just remember that that motion is the divine itself. Not the end result, but the motion. What do you think moves you? What do you think moves you? And you know, science is having a great deal of trouble with this. They keep running into obstacles when they find all these things out. And the end of it is simply this. Can you just relax into whatever is now, whatever that means, this is it. That means the divine is alive, radiant, and that which allows the experiencing of the now to be experienced. Is the thought. This is the day. This is the day. This can't be. It's too painful. It's too frightening. But as our dear friend found, in that moment, so I know that lots of people that get my CDs and they love Tolle, so let me quote him. You know, we need authorities here. So, here we go. One could say that going through loss is the great awakening. It is a potential opening if you don't run away from it. What is usually condemned as bad by the mind-made self is actually grace coming into your life. But not if you don't know that. Not if you don't know that. If you aren't willing to accept whatever comes as some kind of appropriate action, appropriate grace, you will be left with the struggle of how to solve it. But if you recognize and do not run away from what has just been read to you, and realize that in the moment of the worst kind of situation is exactly the doorway. If you do not run away. Running away doesn't mean getting up and running away. It means running away in your mind. It means struggling for an answer. It means trying to look for a way out. Whereas the way out will be presented or not. It doesn't matter, because the way out is the way in. And every moment is about, even, Bartholomew said, God uses everything to bring you home. Everything. That includes your misery. People keep thinking it just means the radiant. Well, of course it means the radiant. But it's the difficulty. And in the moment, all that you do is what? It's just a matter of not running from what? From the feeling that arises in you. Not allowing the mind to take it and run, but to simply sit with that pain and just allow it to be there and see what happens. It's almost like an arrow of wonder that just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And all of a sudden, peace. Somewhere, there it is. The amazing wonder of the silence of being. Every event is meant as a wonderful arrow to drive you inward, to find out the freedom of who you really are. Every moment. If you reject the moment and start looking, that's all right too. Because again, That is the divine in action. But I assume that you come to places like this so that you can be free. This is about freedom. Freedom. The freedom to allow anything and know that in there is always the way to the truth of the world. Bartholomew used to tell a wonderful story about the little boy who's in a barn and it's filled with manure. And he's shoveling and shoveling and shoveling, and somebody says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "What? With all this manure, there has to be a pony somewhere." Right? Well, ride the pony. It's always there. It's always there. There's never a moment that it's not there. Because the moment would not exist if it wasn't there. It couldn't exist if it wasn't there. Someone asked, why are we here? Why are we all here? And you know, there are so many answers. My answer is, does it matter? Does it matter why we're here? What I think matters is, we are here. We're here. What's here? What's here? That's the question. What's here? Who's here? Who's here? Who is in those eyes looking at these eyes looking at those eyes? Who's it? Who is it that allows this whole thing? And we think it's something mysterious that we have to go and find. It's here, radiantly pulsating in everything that ever happens. Nothing happens without it. Nothing happens without it. Nothing. The radiant light of being. Who is in those eyes looking at these eyes looking at those eyes? Who is it? Who is it that allows this whole thing? And we think it's something mysterious that we have to go and find. It's here, radiantly pulsating in everything that ever happens. Nothing happens without it. Nothing happens without it. Nothing. The radiant light of being that mysteriously moves everything. Holds everything. All objects arise and move in it. Where can we go? Where can we go that we cannot find the experiencing? The only trap will be if you believe you have to find an experiencer. The moment the thought says, I have to find the experiencer, we have created duality. Two things. That which has to go and find something. And then the seeking continues and continues. In Tony's words, it just sits on your shoulder watching you look for it. Put those into whatever formation works for you. But all we're asking today is please stop. It is here. It is here. It is what you are. And since it is you, it is known by you. Why? Because you are it. How could you not? Except by the veil of thought that says, no. So all we're doing The love of the planet is planting the flag. How about we change? How about we have a new thought form? How about, so, how about it? It's now. Can you see me? That's it. If I take out a Uzi and shoot you all, I'm not going to. That's it. If a beautiful light descends from that angelic realm and encompasses you, that's it. Make no mistake, there are other realms. There are other realms. So just to close, you are the eternal brilliance of being. Nothing can ever happen to you. You're safe. Be not afraid. You're always safe. Whatever happens to objects, you are safe. Just know this and be free. Just be free. And thank you for coming. '26th, 2012, Albuquerque, New Mexico. I had someone ask an interesting question in one of my telephone sessions this week, and I thought it worth our bringing awareness to it. And she said, if I had to take everything that I have learned in all these years in all the different ways, what would I say in retrospect that I wished I had known earliest, way beginning, years ago? And so that maybe put me in a really interesting frame of mind, and what began to arise was the magnificent freedom that I wish I had had over and over, that I had heard it. It is not that it wasn't said, it wasn't that I hadn't read it, it wasn't that Bartholomew hadn't delivered it, it was just, what would I wish that I paid attention to? Because, you know, there's so much, and people have so many ideas. It's this, it's that, do this, do that, it's this way. So what was it? So as I sat with it, it came up this way. The minute I became aware that I was looking for something, then I wish that something or someone had knocked me over the head and said, pay attention to this, Mary-Margaret. What you are looking for is exactly what is happening right now. That which you're looking for, because remember what I was looking for. And so I wrote down, well, what do we look for? What do we look for when we start this? Well, we all look for different things. But here are just a few of them. Well, my eternal self. That's pretty vague, isn't it? My true nature. Well, that's really vague. What would that be? And then the beloved. Well, how does that work? And then, well, we all understand peace. And then we're looking for eternal love. Well, what would that mean? And then, you know, my word, the absolute, well, what would that be? And so all of these things. And then we're looking for peace of mind and so on. And what I wished I'd heard was the simplicity of what you are looking for is what is already present, alive in this moment, has never gone anywhere, never could go anywhere. It's here. You want joy? What are we told? We are told that right now our essential true nature is joy. We're told that it's joy, that it's a special kind of a love. These are reports that have come back to us for centuries. And the centuries haven't changed on this one. They say the same thing, getting to the depth of it. This is what we're looking for. So if this be what I had paid attention to long ago, what would I have done differently? I think that's part of the question. What would I have done differently? I would have listened to that with the intensity of, oh, it's here. It's truly here. Well, if it's truly here, then what? Well, then here comes the search. Well, then I have to find out how to find out what's truly here. And I have to know what's truly true about what's truly here. And I can't just look at it and say, well, there it is. There is this mystique. And in my life, in my experience, what happened was, this is where I started believing the words of the mind. My mind, other people's minds. I listened to what other people's minds had reported, because, and no matter what you want to say, when you start writing something down or saying something, it's partly coming from mind, partly. It can also come from depth of within, but when you try to describe it, you're back into mind. All right, so, but I listened to all those things, and the truth of it is, it never really occurred to do exactly what Bartholomew said in his closing time with us, which is, sit down, shut up, and find it. It's just right there. He didn't say go looking for it. He didn't say it's hard to find. He didn't say any of that. But what he did say was, energy follows thought. Energy follows thought. All right, so energy follows thought. What does that mean now for me today? Energy follows thought. The thoughts took me everywhere. You all know this. Not only to 24 countries, but to how many different kinds of experiences, how many kinds of attempts at this kind of meditation, that kind of this, that, you know, the story. You know, you want the perfect seeker? Here she is, right here, you know, with everything she's tried. And so it was, so what drove that? What drove that? Energy follows thought. The thought was, it's not here, Mary-Margaret, or it is here, here's the sad part, it is here, but you're not good enough to have it. You're not pure enough to have it. You're not clear enough. You're not devoted enough. You're not trying enough. You're not attempting enough. There's something that is intrinsically wrong. What? With me. With me. And so the search begins, and then it's years and years, and slowly the search slows down. And the reason it slows down is that the idea begins to take hold. Don't listen to the thoughts. Don't listen to the thoughts. And that came, of course, first from Bartholomew, was echoed in so many people, such as those of you that love Byron Katie. She does a beautiful job of it. Tony Parsons points to it. All of the people who you listen to, Tolay, all these people, they all, what is the essential teaching that comes out is don't believe your thoughts. Don't believe your thoughts. And Byron Katie's words is, if you still believe your thoughts, you're not done yet. Don't you love it? It's just so simple. So, if you believe your thoughts, and finally, over the years came this deeper and deeper cognition, you're listening to your thinking. And the thinking keeps saying repeatedly, because we all know this, I am preaching to the choir, and I know that. I know you all know this. I know those of you hearing the CDs, those of you who might see it on YouTube, you know this. I'm just reminding, all this is about, this is not a prescription. I'm not prescribing something. I'm trying to describe something. And what I'm trying to describe is the slowly dawning knowing that my thoughts were in no way provable to me. I liked some of the thoughts. Some of them were really wonderful. But they did not hold me in the times of true difficulty. They didn't hold me, because in truth they were made of thought. And as we all know, thought is very ephemeral. It comes and it goes. It doesn't have that lasting something that we all already are experiencing, but jump over because we're moving toward something that we think is not present. So even if I had believed that it was present, there was an accompanying belief that there had to be something special in this equipment here to be the receptor of that. And then it could get really depressing because then it can only be by grace. You know, that's a very sad thought, truly, that it can only be by grace. Because there are a lot of people perhaps who believe that they're worthy of grace. I haven't met many of them. You know, I really have not. Deeply, when I really am intimately close to people who talk with me, I find that they don't believe it either. That they believe that, so what, it's here, but then my equipment isn't lined up. And you hear this all the time, don't you? We need to line it up. You have to be in harmony with, you have to be in vibrational frequency. I've come to really not like that word, excuse me, but vibrational frequency, meaning somehow in this immense 75 trillion light years of motion, I'm supposed to find the one vibration? But this is the way the mind works. Out of all of the things that are happening, well, everything's happening, but then I'm not having the joy. Why I'm not having that deep feeling? It's because the mind is still absolutely running the entire show. And because I had not taken the time to truly listen to what had been said forever, I continued to follow other people's thoughts. Other people's thoughts. Then I quit listening to other people and started listening to my own thoughts. And I found that my own thoughts were made up of other people's thoughts. Right? Wasn't going anywhere. Because when you're really down in the darkness of the moment of depression, those kinds of thoughts, in my case, did not hold. They didn't hold. They didn't hold. So, what would have held? Well, we'll never know. But what I would say now in answer to this question is to have taken deeply, seriously, if you could use that kind of somber word, but with great focus, these over and over, it's here. It is absolutely already here. You exist. Talking to myself, I exist. The mind says, oh, well, who is this I? And what I exist? And what do you mean by exist? You see? And then we're lost. And I'm gone again in the fog of it all. However, in the simplicity of it's here, it's here. Something stops. Something stops. And there's nothing left but the revelation of, well then, it's got to be here. In the human form that is not capable of this. But listen to the ideas that have rolled down through the centuries about that. What are the odds? Well, let's see, 10 in 100 million, or 10 in 100,000. You know, there's the thought. And then how can I possibly be the one in the 100,000? Or even if you get it down to 10,000. Nobody's ever said that, but if they ever said that, there would be a part of mind that would wise up and say, but not for me. It won't, but then then show me how. Show me how. How do I do it? How do I do it? So, if you go way back to the beginning of all these things that have been recorded and passed down, to the things that are being spoken now, it's always at the core of it the same. It's happening now. And you don't have to do anything to be what you already are. You are. You are. You don't know what you are. But you don't wake up in the morning and go, well, let's see, am I me or am I somebody else? I mean, there's a knowing that there is a similarity to what happened before you went to bed, that experience of that magnificent energy and the morning. There is a knowing that there is a wholeness here. You don't experience yourself in separated pieces, do you? Do you really find yourself experiencing yourself in separated pieces? You just flow along. You just flow along, but you don't notice that you're flowing along because you're listening to your mind, and your mind's job is to chop it all up. So the mind chops it all up, hands you a lot of information, none of which you have proved to what? Prove to what? To maintain. What maintains? What is always here? We're back to every great teaching. What is always here? Look for that does not come and go. That's Bartholomew. Look for that does not come and go. And he doesn't mean look. He means just know that there is something here that does not come and go. If we ever needed new good news, to me, this is really good news. That it is not only here, but it is in the active modality of being everything that happens. So in Toby Parsons' words, it's nothing, that beautiful, magnificent, mysterious, unspeakably wondrous something that becomes everything. But it's everything. It's everything. What I found that I had done in my work with this that was least helpful was I kept taking this physical apparatus out of the picture. And I kept looking at things. I kept looking at things instead of stopping all that and simply being with things. Now that is the simplest thing of all. It's simply to be with whatever is arising. I don't mean staring at it, be with it, be with it. Just be with it. Be with it, be with it. Whatever it is. If you're focusing on the breath, great. You don't focus. It's happening. It sounds so silly to talk like this, but it is so obvious. It is so incredibly obvious that we have absolutely made it almost impossible to find. And again, so many of the ancient and modern teachers say that in order to make this difficult, this game difficult, God, let's just use that word, manifested as everything. And then the thought arises, I have to find myself. Although myself is in everything. Can we finally have a little laugh at this? Can we finally just loosen up a little and laugh? Because if we die today, so what? So what? So what? So what? Because that which has always been present will still be present. And you say to me, oh, big mouth, how do you know? And I'll say to you, well, sweetheart, find out for yourself. You can find out. You can find out. Just takes an instant. Just keep checking. Am I here? Yeah. Oh, am I here? Yeah, I'm here. Someone asked me a very sweet question this weekend. They're talking about what can manifest is a fear of death. And she was pointing out that in one instance, there was an operation performed, and she went under, and then woke up, and the operation was over. And there was no conscious knowing of what had happened in between. This has happened to most of us, I imagine. You know, we're not the ones that wake up and go, oh, I'm in heaven, and I'm looking at angels, you know, there's nothing. And then there's deep sleep, when you're nothing. And so then fear can interpret, because remember, again, it is the mind interpreting. And the mind interprets, especially if this happens to you when you're younger. What is so simple is to really acknowledge that what's happening is that when the psychological, seemingly separate self gets unplugged magically, who knows how, right? There is no memory there to record. So, of course, since we're used to mental thinking, we say, well, I don't know what happened. There was nothing there. That's because the recording mechanism, which is memory, is not activated because it gets pulled with the plug of the whole rest of it. The mystery is who pulls the plug. I love that title, never mind. Isn't it wonderful? I mean, isn't it magnificent that the plug gets pulled? That there are times of every 24 hours, for hopefully many of us, that the plug gets pulled. We don't have to keep on with this rat race of the mind of how am I going to do it and what's going to happen to me and I hope I'm safe and I've got to get, whatever the story would be. Something magnificently pulls the plug. And there's nothing. And when we wake up in the morning, we say, I had a wonderful night. What does it mean? It means you were unplugged. It means there was no memory. It means there was nothing. There was no thing. There was nothing. And then the other wonderful times is when we're on anesthesia, whatever that would be, same thing happens. Whatever that recording memory device gets unplugged. So you don't remember the cutting and the aspirating and all the stuff that goes on. I mean, blessed life! Blessed life. So the one thing that tells us that there is something going on and on and on is experientially possible right now, right here, right here. Because everything continues to move, everything moves, but there is something that never shifts. It never shifts, and you know that, and it just takes a few moments of observation, hopefully on a continuing basis, which is what helped me, but it doesn't have to be for you. Once I really felt that solid, never moving something, I said, oh, that. Oh, that. It was that simple and that easy. Stunning. Why one didn't stumble over it a lot sooner is amazing. Then came the possibility of the other possibility, which is if you just keep on with the deep, remaining, perhaps last thought. It's here. It's what's happening. It's that simple. It's here. It's what's happening in this moment. It stops the mind. At least it stopped my mind. It's here. It's here. So, immediately the mind wants to pick this up and turn this into a prescription. Oh, you have to start paying attention. You have to start doing this. You have to do that. All of that starts to flood in. But the simplicity of it was, and is, and remains, the excitement of it's here. Excitement. There's an excitement in the sense of it's here. And it's a mystery. It's here. And then we're told it's life with a capital L. It's the living magnificence of life itself. It's now. It's this. It's this. And when the body and mind go, this, whatever this is, will still be here in its own here-ness and now-ness, whatever that would be. But then the mind gets caught up. Well, I want to understand the mystery. Well, a mystery is something you're not going to figure it out. Bartholomew again. Life is not a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be enjoyed. And we say, fine, and we go on. Suffering. Suffering. Endless suffering. Because we do not believe it is possible that what has been said throughout the the centuries, that this is, we heard, this is it. This is it. But then we say, but I don't want this. I don't want this it. This isn't the it I had in mind. I had another it in mind. And so then we go looking out, how do I fix this it? Because obviously there's something wrong. But you see, there are two kinds of people in my work. Either they say there's something wrong with life and I have to fix it, or there's something wrong with me and I have to fix me. Right? In either case, it's a prescription. You've got to go and do something. You're being prescribed. This is what we need to do. I have followed so many prescriptions, I feel like a pharmacist. In the very deepest sense of the word, to really be willing and remember that the power of the mind is going to pull you back to its own story. Because if you begin to truly get interested in, it's here. And then let the process unfold itself. You don't do anything. There's nobody here doing anything. It's this wonderful process that begins to play in on itself and begins to make itself clearer and clearer. You can't do anything. You know, if you believe there's a you, well, go ahead. That's good. If you believe there isn't a you, well, that's good. Neither matter. Neither idea matters. They're both of the mind. It doesn't matter what your mind says. If your mind says, I don't exist, or your mind says, I do exist, it's irrelevant. It's the only thing that matters is what is your actual, in this moment, experience. What is the experience right now? Right now. And when I just allowed the eye-opening, heart-opening possibility that it is absolutely here as this, not with mystical eyeballs, because that's the other trip we take. Well, let's see, it's here, but there's something wrong with my eyes. If I could get another vibration going through my eyes, then I could see it differently. So then we start on the trip. Well, how do you get your vibration? And now we start having a lot of fun. How do you get your vibration in mind? Well, you start with your diet, then you start with your teacher, then you start with where you live, because some places are more susceptible to being what it is than other places. You know, so the mind begins its trip, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's an absolutely magnificent way to spend whatever this time span is. That's not the point. The point is, at some point in the timeless time, there comes an awakening moment that you can't find and you can't make happen, but you all know. You all know. This is why I love this. Remember, my deal is it's got to be fair. There have to be no exceptions to this. There is deeply embedded in each one of these seemingly separate body-mind apparatuses is the knowing of its own wholeness. It knows its whole. It is not taken in by the game of separation. It knows. What knows? I don't know what knows. That's why it's a mystery. But when you try and solve the mystery, then you end up in your mind again. Because your mind says, well, I've got to be able to grasp it. I've got to be able to describe it. I've got to be able to show it to someone. No. A mystery is a mystery. There is no solution to this one. It's just to be enjoyed. And you can say to me, easy for you to say, Mary-Margaret, maybe you're having an enjoyable life. Well, those of you that know my life know that there's yes and no in all of that. But, so how, in the middle of a I don't like this moment in one's life, Can you enjoy the mystery? And here is the only thing as of this day that comes forward to be said, which is, once there is an igniting that is absolutely possible for anybody. It's not a mysterious thing. If you're hearing these words, you're hearing these words. You've heard these words before. That's all that's needed. So here are the words. It is what's happening now. It's what's happening now. It's what's happening now. And all that has to happen is nothing. Because things then just begin. There's an interest. Good morning, and this is the annual winter workshop in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I feel there's only really one question that needs to be talked about these 2 days together. And my suspicion is that we will come at it from many different directions, each one from our own inner questioning, inner doubts, inner disappointments, and inner excitement and delight that has happened since most of us gathered last year. But the essential question that would be absolutely magnificent if you could leave here tomorrow with a deeper connection to that which you truly are, and not to that which your mind tells you that you are. If that is in any way successful for any of you or us, if that is achieved, not as an achievement, but as an experiential, wow, it's true. It's true. I'm not my mind. I'm not my thinking. I'm not my body. I'm not my life story. Oh my God, am I even Mary-Margaret? What is the truth of this? Because we have been told, especially in the last 10 years, endlessly, over and over again, we are not what we perceive ourselves to be. How many times have we heard this? Over and over and over again. Yet, there is an ongoing insistence that we are somehow that job, that life in the world, that difficulty, that illness, that somehow it is truly who we are. And the rest is just to be prayed for and hoped for. And if we're lucky enough, you know, God wandering around the planet will find us and touch on us, and we will be the one that gets some grace. No, it is not like that. And if that deepens as the knowledge that it is not that, then what remains is that. When you focus carefully on all of the obvious things that you are not, on all the obvious things that appear that you are not, then it begins to arise in you, well, if I'm not that, and if I'm not that, and if I'm really not my life story, and if I'm really not this thought that I'm running, and if I'm really not ill with this illness that I say I am, all of these things begin to unwind in their own way. And as they unwind on their own, without the so-called you, who is going to do the unwinding? If there is no central, unified, ongoing, limited, small little worm like you, if there really isn't one of those, then whose do we want? And how does this happen? Because unwinding happens. Unwinding happens, and by that we mean the unwinding of the tight story that has been knit around all human consciousness as little ones when they're born. Very shortly, far earlier than is stated by many, there begins a web that moves around them, that becomes a belief, I am this, I am that, I need this, I need that. The infant says, I need this, I need this. Well, if there is no infant, if there is no reality in that infantness, if that isn't true, then what's going on? So we have to be willing to investigate this. And this means we have to be willing to drop just to drop all of the ideas that we have accumulated in our consciousness about who we think we are. So go back to this infant. The story is that when they're 2 or 3, they break open and they go, I'm separate and all that. I hear all that, and all of that's understood on one level, but there's another way to look at this. If there never is anything individuated in there, if there never is anything there, then what is really at play here? And as you well know, all of you, no one in this room is going to find this surprising. You all know that the web is words. The web that ties, that binds, is words. Not the movement of energy. Not energy. Words. Words. And as the words roll out, just like yarn in a ball rolling across your entire life, only in this case it's winding up around you and forming a cocoon shape around you through which you, as consciousness, can see through. Obviously, you see through it since it's a part of you, but we'll talk about that later. So all of these things, constantly, you as consciousness, vast, never-changing, amazing, call it what you want. Call it awareness, call it God, call it Fred. It doesn't matter what you call it. But something from the earliest days, look at a baby's eyes. Do you say, oh, there's nobody in there? Do you look at a baby and say there's nobody in there? It's the absolutely opposite. You look at a baby, you say, oh my God, look who's in there. Because their eyes are so magnificent and so clear and so wondrous. And that is the beginning. That is the beginning of the, pay attention. Pay attention. All of the tools that you need to find out who you are present every moment in your life experience if you choose to look for them. However, if you choose to look for things that are going to support your story, that you're separate, that means you're special. You get it? If you're separate, you've got to be special. The only way to be ordinary is to be like everything else, in which case we're talking about being ordinary in the sense of you're all the same. Very few humans applaud that thought. Oh, we're all the same. Oh, of course, we're all the same. Well, except for my gift of whatever it might be. So, as we move through, we will begin to undo, allow the undoing to happen. Even saying we will undo, I've already lied. You know, I'm back to Bartholomew. Every time I open my mouth, I lie. And the same thing goes true here today, and I want us all to be aware of that. Words are limitation. We have to get words a limitation. So the thing is to move beyond that. So the question these 2 days, how? Now most of you know how. In fact, the truth of it is you all know how. Because you all do it all the time. But you're just not present to your own awakened moments. You are not present to your awakened moments because you are fixated on trying to fix your life because you think if you fix your life, you're going to be aware of your awakened moments. Do you see how nuts that is? I would like to just present that. That is insane. You say this to a child and they will say, what are you talking about? You see? It's not like that. It is so utterly simple. So how is it simple? Why is it simple? I will state why it's simple, and then we'll spend the next 2 days working out why it's simple. It is simple because everything, absolutely everything that you see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think, all of it is it. Is it. Nothing is not it. So, you, as nothing not it, run around looking for it. Listen to these words. You spend the time trying to find something that is already it. So it looks for it. Come on. Come on. Let's just undo this mystery because it's the problem with non-duality as I've experienced. 25th, 2013, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Good morning.
One of the questions that is asked constantly is who or what Bartholomew was. And as you can imagine, some people have some very creative and independent ideas of what that is. So friends of mine in Atlanta were kind enough to send me a statement of what Bartholomew said. And I thought, well, why not? So this is what he says. Well, my time with you is finished. For those of you that I will not see again, don't believe it. You may never see it again in this form, but I want to tell you something. If you ever feel something around you that loves you, I'm there. If you ever see something that delights your heart and makes you smile, I am there. If you ever feel gratitude for something unknown, I'm there. If you ever feel sad and want some love to fill you past all your expectations, I'm there. If you ever have a yearning for full, complete, and total awakening, I am certainly there. Ramana says, and I say with Ramana, if you go into hell, I will be there. For those of you who have no desire to be separate from not Bartholomew, but from awareness that knows itself as awareness, that awareness is there. Turn your mind to it, I'm there. Just as simply, remember a moment of our sharing, and I'm there. No separation. There has never been, and there never can be, because this is not a Bartholomew. This is awareness, aware of itself. That is the simple truth. Any idea other than that is a limitation. And since you are awareness itself, how could there be a separation between that which you call Bartholomew and awareness? So, no pretending, no separation, no worry about separation, just knowing, now and for always, in all times, in and out of time, throughout all the createdness, past all createdness, past it all, there is but one. So how can there be separation when there is but one? So don't pretend. Speak the truth, speak the truth, speak the truth. Thank you. And I, Mary-Margaret, would add, know that truth. Just know that truth. I'm very grateful for this because it leads into what I thought would be interesting for us to talk about these days together. There's so much talk of increased anxiety in the world. And with that desire to not be so anxious, the question arises, how do I stop being anxious? How can my phone rings all the time, my email, everybody wants to know, what do I do about my anxieties? Whether the anxieties are about any of the things, their personal life, the life of the planet, the life of the economy, the life of their children, whatever it might be. Here's the question, what do we do about our anxiety? And of course, the first thing that happens is everyone starts to shuffle around and tries to find a tool. And they go into what Bartholomew used to call their bag of tricks and try and find something, some tool that they have heard about, even from Bartholomew itself, heard about and try to apply that to their particular problem.
Well, if any of you have tried any of those things, the one thing that we know is it is hard to do. Do you remember how hard it is to be consistent in anything? For example, here it is. Be in the now. Okay, be in the now. So try sitting around all day today and then tonight being in the now. Just keep on trying to be in the now. Go ahead. I mean, is it true that you should be in the now? Well, the truth is you can't get out of the now. So the clearer that you get, and I'm sure that Mr. Tolle knows this, it's not a matter of being in the now. It's a matter of allowing the creative principle, which is what we are, to hear and to know, and thereby to become alive to the truth that whatever is happening, be it anxiety, be it angst, be it anything, that itself is awareness itself. It isn't a matter of, oh my gosh, awareness is only wonderful. I hear this all the time, but I want that thing that I keep thinking can happen, where everything is just beautiful and calm and quiet and wonderful. I don't want this. So now we have two anxieties. Now we have the thing we don't want. And on top of it, we have the not wanting of it, and then the anxiety of trying to find out how to get out of it. And there comes the difficulty. How do we get out of something that we did not create to begin with? If you notice, thoughts arise. Do you notice a thought coming up and saying, do you think we should think this? Or is it just that thoughts come? So the creative principle itself is alive. That is what I would like to focus on. We are the creative principle itself. Not only can we not die, but we are that which is spontaneously creating every moment that is being created. Who else is doing it? You say, well, my separate entity is doing it. Myself, as Mary-Margaret. And, you know, I've looked for that for a long time because it's a really exciting thing. If I am the creator of all my life, my good and my bad, and if I am really the creator of all that, then the hope is, if I am the creator, this is why the ego loves that thought so much. If I am the creator of my difficulty, then I can fix it. If you do not believe that, if you have watched your life and done the best you could and noticed that things continue to happen the way they happen, if that is what really happens to you, then you will begin to notice that the anxiety goes with the future thought in time, somewhere in time, I will be able to solve this. Check it out. Don't listen to me. Check it out and see. If not, the difficulty is the belief in time. If Bartholomew said anything over and over, it is, time is a creation of mind. Mind, M-I-N-D. It is a mind thought. If there is no such thing as what we call mind, and I know I'm stretching a lot of you, especially many of you perhaps just seeing this on YouTube, to stretch to the possibility of the excitement of beginning to believe that there is no metallic thing called time. If there is no thing called time, then what is happening? What is happening is that in this moment, the creative principle, which is what is the only thing that really exists, is creating something, which is why one person can create a thought of needing to move to Montana, right? That's that thought. Somebody in the other part of the world says, that's not my thing to do. Who's right? Are we going to wrestle to the floor over every concept? Well, we have to decide. Well, is she right or is he right? I mean, who's right? The answer is, you are the creative principle. You, capital U, total one you, is creating, is magnificently thousands upon millions of different creations all the time. And this body-mind looks through its moment of creation and says, no, I don't think I'll move to Montana. Another one says, yes, I think I will move to Montana. Right? Wrong? No. That's not the point. There is How can people say there is no right and wrong? Here's where we join. If we believe such a thing as there is no right wrong, then we come to this exciting thought that whatever is being created in this moment, in your life, in your seemingly separate life, it is your own rambunctious creativity as the one principle itself, creating what appears to be a separate life. And once that is really taken in, that this is the creative principle, not the body-mind, but the creative principle is alive here, using everything that's present in order to create whatever is going to be observed outside. That is the most beautiful thing in the world. If that were believed, it would be the end of war. It would be the end of conflict between person to person. If one could absolutely understand, no matter how much you might love someone else, no matter how close you might be to someone else, have you noticed that you create different worlds? Why aren't you laughing? Don't you think that's funny? I think it's extremely funny because everybody creates their own world. And then you either decide to allow the other to create their own world, or you say, no, you're wrong. Do it my way. I've got it right. How can you be so dumb as to not know that I've got it right? I've got it right. And if you just do this and this and this, then all will be well. Of course, forgetting to notice that as they're doing this and this and this, sometimes they do well and sometimes they don't. The creative principle is balanced. If there's one thing that all of the awakened ones, whatever that would be to you, say, is that there is a balance. When you get to the world of duality, there is a balance. And this is the one thing that the ego really doesn't like. Because what does it mean that there's a balance? It means there's a balance, there's some good and there's some bad. And the ego does not like that. Because the ego's story to us is let us continue to only experience the good. As long as we believe that, we will suffer. We will suffer. When we allow the magnificent possibility that even within the bad, the difficult, the terrifying, the unthinkable, the unbelievable, that which we do not want at all, but at the heart of that creation, there is, at the core of it, a magnificent something. That it doesn't have to be a beautiful flower. That it can be the mud out of which the flower comes. But the truth of it is, underneath both is the same magnificent something. So as long as we are focused on changing things to be as we want them to be, we will probably, unless we're really lucky, we will never stumble upon the magnificent awareness and experiential reality that buried under all experiences is something that is always present. Always present. You can call it anything you want, but it is always present. But if your eyes are focused on the ever-shifting world of the external, trying to get it right, and then of course we not only want to get it right for us, but we want to get it right for other people. Understandably, we don't want our children to suffer. We want to somehow make it right. We don't want the world to suffer. We want things to be right. But if you've noticed, the world continues to do what it does. And if you've turned on the TV lately, do you think we have more harmony on the planet than we... I'm trying to be funny, but it is quite a mess. I hope you've noticed. So what does this mean? That we should all abandon the planet and go to Pluto? Well, now there's the thought. Well, if we could do that, all right, go ahead and do that. But the fact remains, we get to Pluto, and guess what? It will be the same thing. Because whatever is the creative principle creates out of itself. It creates this instant out of itself. It is magnificently wonderful. Moment of life now. Now. And instead of getting all tied up in what is being created and trying to manipulate the equipment, to just rest in the absolute magnificent, ever-present something that is ever available because it is always there. Everything else comes and goes. Bartholomew again. Whatever comes and goes cannot be the eternal Tao. It cannot be that. Which means that it comes and goes. Which means that it comes and goes. But again, you don't wake up in the morning and ask yourself, well, am I still here? Am I the same person that I went to bed last night? Of course you don't. There's a knowing of the continuity of all of this. There's a knowing of the magnificence of some oneness that keeps just moving seemingly outside itself, but actually has the availability of that steady, ongoing presence of the now. The creative principle itself is alive and well every moment of everyone's life. And you say, I don't like what's being created. And I say, fine, go ahead and try and fix it. But how about this? Instead of trying to stop all of that, just allow yourself to try to fix it. Go ahead. But while you are in motion trying to fix it, find the place that never moves. It is the most magnificent gift of all, that in the middle of all of this motion, mental motion, physical motion, all of it, this still, silent, inexplicable something is always available. It isn't a choice. Bartholomew's wonderful words. Being a human body is magnificent. You don't have to choose peace over chaos. You could have total chaos, and in the middle of that chaos, have absolute peace. Absolute peace. If you redefine your definition of peace. If peace means the whole world is calm, everything is in order, well, sit around and wait for that, guys. But, I don't think I've got enough time for that kind of thing. So what's left? What's left is it here now or is it not? Is it really here or isn't it? And this brings us to, I think, one of the greatest difficulties of all, which is, in my experience, a lot of people are afraid to take that big risk. They are afraid to take their hands off fiddling with their life and kind of trust that it's going to keep on going and allow themselves to just rest back in the ever-present, spacious, present that's always present. They're afraid. They're afraid to let go, because if they let go of the doing of it, then it's going to go wrong. That it's not going to follow what they want. So here's the risk. Can you let go? People ask me this all the time. What does it mean to let go? Well, in my world, what it means to let go is to trust that the motions of this body and this body-mind and the very world itself, that somehow, I've noticed, it continues to go on, even if there is a focus deeply, deeply expanded in something unspeakably, silently present. It's not a choice, ladies and gentlemen. We don't have to choose. It's just there. Is it worth the risk? Well, of course, I would say yes. But if you are truly addicted to having your life look a certain way, then I suppose you will just continue to try and fiddle with it. But, that's really tiring. That's really tiring. And in the end, what peace is about for this body-mind has to do with deep, clear relaxation. Deep, clear relaxation. And from that relaxed, vast point, instantly attained, Bartholomew, gives us endless things. He makes it so simple, just think about him. Well, You know, if you want to think about Bartholomew as an entity, go right ahead. Not a problem. That's your creation. If you feel closer to it through that creation, so be it. So be it. It doesn't matter. The fact remains, we cannot get out of this silent thing that we all are. We can't. So it's not a matter of how to get there. It's a matter of realizing that we not only are there, that we are that. And there isn't any to and fro coming and going. Even the seemingly going away from it is absolutely the same as being still and silent in it. It sounds so contradictory, but in truth, I'm preaching to the choir for many of you, because many of you already know this. I'm just saying that if there's still a wavering in our consciousness about what to do, it's just give this a try. Just, and here comes the terrible word, trust. Trust. Trust what? Well, my answer is trust whatever's happening, because it's going to happen. Just trust whatever's happening, because it's going to happen. And in some way, knowing that the totality of this creation is the creative principle itself, alive, seemingly streaming through a particular body-mind, but all the time totally aware that it is not the body-mind. Consciousness is not confused. Consciousness knows. So, as consciousness, which you absolutely are, you know. So, speak the truth. Speak the truth to yourself, is how I hear it say it. Speak the truth to yourself. When the lies come up, I'm a limited human being. I can suffer. Yes, you can suffer. But you can either suffer with the knowing that it is the creative principle itself, and deeply buried in the acknowledgement of the pain and the absolute experiencing of that pain, there comes the peace. To allow yourself to experience the pain, the anger, the resentment, the judgment, the I wish it were different, to really allow that to be experienced full on, that brings the peace. The very thing you would try to get away from. The very thing we try to find tools to move around in. But how magnificent is this? It means that every moment, no matter what is happening, that is the beloved in motion. Beloved is indeed itself, capital I. It couldn't be anything else. It is always itself. The simplicity of this is just so simple. But the ego wants complexity. Have you noticed? The ego loves complexity. The more complicated it gets, the more fun it has. Now it can get its friends and its enemies. You know, in order to be an ego, you have to have an enemy. Did you know that? So, all of us who think we have no enemies, look again. By that I mean, the ego cannot go on in its march to nowhere unless it has an enemy. And an enemy can be something as simple as a thought. It can be your condition in life. It can be your health. It can be your age. All of these things that can never, ever be changed. I mean, what are you going to do about getting older? Well, you can do what you want on the outside, but let's face it, something's happening, right? Things are moving. So what do we do with that? Do we go, oh, well, of course, what do we do? I know exactly, and so do you. We start fixing the inside, we do our best, we do the vitamins, we do the right food, and we try to look gorgeous, and we try to look handsome, we try to lose weight, we go to the gym, I don't know what we do. We do whatever we do, and that's all fine. There's no problem with that. Except the delight, if you believe that story, that you are a separate human being marching to death. I mean, think about that storyline. You are something that's marching every moment toward your own extinction. What kind of peace and harmony is that? Let me just examine that thought. that you are a separate entity marching toward death. And the way we have death now is, I bet in everyone's mind at some time, is being strapped to a wheelchair in some institution that doesn't care for you and drooling. Isn't that what comes up in the mind? Isn't that? Maybe you have enough funds that you can have somebody sitting by you while you're strapped to your chair and drooling, and that's better. But most people take it to the extreme. Nobody loves me. I'm all alone. Here I am. Okay. What a way! What a life! 3 cheers for God. I mean, what kind of a creator creates that kind of a story? It's a story. It's a story. It's not true. It's not true. And the awake ones keep saying, you have never been born, therefore you cannot die. Everybody goes, what do you mean I'm not born? Look, here I am. It's obvious. And I'm saying, look, and find the obvious. Find the obvious. Find that which never, ever moves. That which never decays. That which never gets older or sick or whatever it would be. Find it. How hard is it? Here's the storyline. It's so hard that we need other people, but thank heavens you do, or you wouldn't be here, so thank you very much. But, maybe this is the last workshop. Maybe nobody ever needs to question again. You don't need anything. How can everything need something? How can everything need something? Only by believing that it's separate. That is separate from everything. Then it needs something. And in order to get something, what do you have to create? You have to create time. Because if you don't have time, you can't get anywhere. Well, either you believe Bartholomew or don't, and if you don't, that's okay. Find out for yourself. Is there such a thing as time? Is there such a thing as time? There's absolute agreement that all the minds get together and create such, but show me time. Just show yourself time. It doesn't exist. It exists as a concept. Does it work? You bet. You bet. It works great. Until you come to such things as I'm going to live and then I'm going to die. And I have an ending time. Now time becomes the enemy. I'm going to die. Here comes the enemy. What can I do to stop it? Whatever you do. But understand, what does it mean to be free? Again and again, we hear, become free. Free of what? To me, that only means to be free of the limitations and the limiting concepts that arise by the belief that I am a limited human being with a limited lifespan, and I better do the best I can, because not only is it bad enough that I live this lifetime, but oh my God, whatever I do this time is going to predict what happens next time, so I better get it right, and I'm not getting it right. And in fact, as I get older, it seems that I'm getting more and more things not right, because people keep telling me that I'm not getting things right. Lots of people, when they get older, they start losing their hold on this time-based reality. And people start telling them, and you all know people like that, that there's something wrong. Well, the truth is, the only thing wrong is whoever's perceiving them is perceiving them from a time-space moment. That is not where they are. That is not where they are. Their consciousness has expanded into its own knowing, where this kind of trivia doesn't matter. And we say, come back into our trivia, because, come back into our chaos, and don't be over there where you are in peaceful quiet. You should be doing something. Get up and do something. Walk up and down the hall, or do whatever it is one has to do. Do you understand where I'm going? So we can make this really complicated, and that's fine. But if you're miserable enough, or if you've noticed enough that no matter how your mind tries, some things are good and some things are not, then this other alternative arises with awakened magnificent power. And from that moment on, the minute you are willing to just claim the total good news that The only thing that's happening is the creative principle itself. Creating itself in its own, at that moment, particular way, through a particular body-mind referencing. That's that. No conflict between one and the other. None. None. If one only understands. Each creative awareness is created. Why would God Xerox itself? Why would God Xerox itself? Endlessly the same thing. But that's what we say. We have to be like, and then we take whoever it is. If you're a Christian, you have to be like Christ. If you're a Buddhist, you have to be like Buddha. If you're going to be an Islamist, you have to be like some Sufi you love. Whoever it is, it goes on and on. Well, how am I to put this? How this particular, each one of those, and every one of you hearing, and those seeing, whatever is being created is sacred. It is sacred. This is a sacred creative moment of consciousness. This one. You say, don't tell me that jerk that lives down the street that mistreats his dog, that can't be a creative moment. And I'm saying, oh really? And you know that? Yours is sacred and theirs isn't? Here we go again. Creative principle create pain and suffering. And I answer, find out. Don't ask anybody. Find out. Find out. Find out. You're the one to ask. You're the one to ask. If there's anything that I see as shifting between now and the end of the 1900s, when it comes to consciousness, is the ever-increasing understanding that it's between you and you. It's yours to do. It's your life. It's your aliveness. It's yours. And that is wonderful. That means there is no one that knows better than you. I sit here and tell you, in my experience, and I've known many wonderful, expanded people, in the end, that did no good. It was only when there was nothing but me and my moment. Me and my moment. No more passing on responsibility to someone else. Mine. And in the silence, what a magnificent gift to know that if you want to know this, you can know this. Bartholomew again. He said, I can't promise you anything about how many cars and a relationship and lots of money. I can promise you one thing. If you want to know the truth of your being, that I know you can do. Why? Because you're already doing it. You simply haven't noticed. You haven't noticed. So, the booksellers won't like this a lot, or the CD producers and so forth, but, if we just know the ultimate, do you want to feel, a lot of people say, how am I going to love myself? I'm supposed to love myself. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me, how to love myself. All I know is this. It is possible in the moment when I quit fiddling with trying to fix things, that there was something present that was never absent, which carries with it the feeling that I would call unconditional love, which states that this moment, no matter what, is magnificently unconditional love in some way. So it isn't about loving Mary-Margaret. It's not about that. It's about finding that love is. If you don't like the word love, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Deep peace is another word for it. Same thing. Something that includes everything. Includes everything. And then the knowing. And then there's the knowing. There's really only one. And that is knowable. Why? Because it's the eternal truth. Every other truth comes and goes. Capital T is the truth of being. There is only being. Being, whatever being is expressing at that moment. Simple. Simple. So. That's all. 25th, of course, 2013, and the next meeting again will be the last Sunday of the month. A really dear friend of mine named Judith, who many of you know, sent me a quote from John Wheeler, and if you haven't read John, I think you'd really enjoy it. Wonderful, wonderful man. Just when I met him, it was just great. And it brought forward, as I read it, perhaps how exciting it would be for us this morning to get the sweet essence of how simple all this is, rather than how complex or hard to do, or I don't think I'm getting it right, and well, what book can I read? Or I guess I don't read books anymore. Or what YouTube can I look at? Whatever it might be. So I've taken the liberty of taking his words and messing them up and using them in my own way. And so what I would say is, you have to be present as what you are looking for in order to experience anything. Let's say it again. Let's slip right past all the thoughts in the mind and just get really, really quiet. And remember, this other thing that I wrote that came to me the other day is, you know, if we don't think of all the things that we're looking for as an object, then what we're not looking for anything. We are not looking for anything. But the way that we have this whole spiritual movement set up is we are looking for something. And if we don't find it, then we have lost something. And that we can die and never having had it. And that is the most depressing thought I can think of. That I've lived my entire life. For what? Because I was looking for something that I couldn't find. Now, if we had a creator God that created that kind of a thought, then we really need to create another kind of a God. Because that kind of a God, excuse the expression, really sucks. You know, that would set it up in such a way that the very thing that would give you the presence of its absolutely always present presence would somehow be elusive, not be found. So, here we go. We go back to what we began with. In order for you to experience anything, sadness, self-pity, fear, loss, whatever, what you are looking for has to be present for you to experience that. And if there is a constant excitement, not striving, but a constant excitement about, wow, whatever I'm feeling, I couldn't be feeling it if what I was looking for wasn't already there, wasn't already alive, present, as my presence, here, tasteable, knowable, seeable, doable, hateable, struggling for? Well, nothing escapes this wonderful, ever-present something. Nothing can possibly escape it because it is everything. Now, you say, so it's an object. And I say, please, we'll do that another time, worrying about objects, because that's a lot of fun. But for today, if we just stick with the simplicity, so why then and how then is this obscured? And I think this is exciting, and you all know this. It's just to bring your attention to it. Remember, the mind is a future-generating piece of machinery. Your mind is a future-generating piece of machinery. It is designed scientifically. I'm not just making this up out of whatever. This is a scientific finding that it is the mind that creates the thoughts, that moves the thinking into an alternative future. Bartholomew said endlessly, 99.9% of what you are afraid of will never happen. Will never happen. But you spend your entire life worrying about things that never happen. So we are so anxious, and that, of course, is the movement of the ego. The ego is really excited about getting everything entrapped in this thought of, I've got to find something. Whereas this wonderful, ever-present thing, without the mechanism of the mind, has that magnificent, silent, open, unmistakably, but yet unspeakable something that is always present, always present. You know what? We are that now. We are the experiencing of it right now, without doing anything. But then watch how the creation of the ever-excited mind moves us into a future event. Even, and this is so wonderfully interesting, even now when we are taught to be in the present, that very statement moves us out. Watch it. Watch what happens. You're just going along fine, all of a sudden you remember, oh, some windbag, possibly this one, said that, you know, there's this thing called the presence, and so you have to be in the present. And so then you go, oh my God, I've got to be in the present. And so you start rocking around, okay, well, what tool am I going to use to get in the present? You're not realizing that in that moment, in that very hilarious, except it doesn't feel funny, hilarious moment of struggling to find it, you are already that, or you could not be experiencing the frustration of not finding it. So what do? You just remember, and I saw this on a video that I thought was hilarious. So here is a scientist who says, you think you know what you are. Well, I think the title of the email of the piece was, if you think you're a human being, think again. I think that was the name of the video, so look it up somewhere. So it says here, what you are, he's a scientist, is 50 trillion cells, 20 trillion atomic structures, 1,000 trillion something else that I don't remember, all of which is moving at the speed of light. So we say, no, I'm Mary-Margaret, and I'm sitting right here, and I see all of you. And the truth of it is, this whole thing is moving at the speed of light, and not only that, it's broken up into 1,000 trillion particles of something. But we say, no, I'm Mary-Margaret, my story is real, I've got a problem, I've got to work it, most of all, I've got to create it, I've got to create being in the present. Look, how can anything that is moving that fast possibly have any effect on what your little, and mine, I'll make it personal, my tiny little mind's going to come up with? My little tiny mind says, no, I'm going to create the next moment the way I want it. All the time, the speed of light is moving. These 1,000 trillion whatevers are moving, and there's this little voice that says, I can control all this. Hey, just watch, I can control all this. And then we go to all these big conferences and we learn how to control all this, and then we go home and we think, I can't control all this. I must be doing it wrong. So we go again, or we get another person, or we keep moving, and we do this, and all. So what is the absolute magic of this time in our world? If there indeed is a world, which is another subject. But right now, can we let go of any kind of thinking, seeking? Remember, Bartholomew, pardon the vernacular, stinking thinking, okay? And it's stinking thinking, not because there's anything wrong with thinking, because there's nothing we can do about that. Here's the problem. It creates, as the scientist said, an alternate reality. Check it out. The alternate realities do not manifest, except some of them do. And that is where we get trapped, because some of them do. So we think, oh, that one worked. Remember Bartholomew and the plastic steering wheel? And that, little kid in the back seat is doing the steering wheel, thinks he knows just what it's doing, and the beautiful car goes the other direction. The child doesn't notice, goes the other direction. Oh yes, I did it that way. I'm doing this thing. It's all tricks of the mind. And that's not a problem. That is not a problem for anyone in this room, anyone getting the CDs, anyone watching this on YouTube, or anyone who's watched anything that has any openness to it. Because the openness is, there is simply no need to have this thought that I have to find something. That is the thought that's the killer. But then what happens is, certain people who have this thought, and then, whoa, they meditate for 6 years, 8 years, whatever, and they become awake. And we go, oh, what did they do? Oh, they did all that. Oh, then that means that I've got to do that, and I've got to calm my mind, and I've got to meditate, and I've got to be a vegetarian, I've got to wear green on Tuesdays. I can't remember what the colors were, but certain colors bring in certain vibrations during the day, and if you wear that color, you have a better chance of awakening. We've done a lot of nutty things around something. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with wearing green on Tuesday. That's a great idea. The thing that's scary is you're going to remember this every day of your life, and then you realize it's not working. I'm in my green dress on Tuesday, and I feel terrible. I just feel terrible. I've had a terrible day. Here we go. What have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? I think this is the one thing that saddens me the most with my beautiful clients that I work with, is the thought that they are doing something wrong. That somehow they have done this. Whatever, in my words today, whatever movement of the Tao, instead of this relaxing into the magnificent, thundering creation of the moment that's moving so fast that there's nothing to do but admire it. Even if you hate it. Admire this, I hate this. Admire this, I'm bored to death. Admire this, I'm scared to death. There is, I know it sounds so, I don't know what it sounds like to you, but it is not very logical, but it's wonderful to get to the positioning of knowing that whatever is arising is the same as whatever is arising. Whatever is arising is the same as what is next arising. And next is all the same. But you say, yes, but some of those hurt and some of those are wonderful. And I say, that's great. And behind all of that, within all of that, reflected on all of that, however you want to put it, is this magnificent, absolutely ever-present, unspeakable, oh, there is something here. We never doubt that there is something that is alive and awake to all of this. So then we take it, what Katie would call second generation, and we go out there and we don't like what we see. Good. It's the same as liking what you see. When you finally understand that the real amazing wonder is not in what is happening to you. It is not in what is happening to you. It is because if there is moments of magnificence, it's because for some moment things have stopped enough that what is always under shows itself. And we call this magic. And the truth of it is, it's the other way around. The magic is the movie. Talk about a magical projection. You know this. It's a projection onto the magnificence of what is excitingly or calmly, whatever way it comes for you, always there if you remember just the simplicity. There's anything if you are not there. Forget about what it is you're experiencing and just allow yourself to get excited about what's here. Without name, without form, without definition, without I already know, but my guru told me, or even worse, Bartholomew said. Please don't do that. Don't do that. Find out for ourselves. This is the whole amazing delight of the whole thing. Find out for ourselves. And what does that mean? Find out for ourselves. The mind goes, how am I going to do that? The answer is stop it. Just stop it. Remember Bart's last words, just shut up and sit down. Just shut up and sit down. And he would even not say, now sit down. I think he'd just say, shut up. And he may even just say, keep on talking, but be aware that something is aware of talking. Something is aware of the movements of your mouth and your hand and the words and the tick, 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 tick of the ever-changing mind. Doesn't it? Doesn't it go tick, 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 tick? It just goes and goes. And watch it sometime. It's hilarious. Remember those 6 hours that we spent in the meditation hut? And all we were allowed to do was to write every thought we ever had for 6 hours. The only thing we could do exceptional was to go down to the bathroom. That was it. But the rest of it was just write down what you're thinking. It was awful. It was absolutely dreadful and boring. Have you ever really listened to your mind? It is so boring. It is the same thing. You say it over and over and over. And you think that if you keep on saying it, that somehow what? Some genie is going to come in and change it? What is... Look, dear hearts, if we are moving faster than the speed of light, if we are 1,000 trillion particles of something with spacious emptiness, what are you going to do about it? Okay, a lot of you have gone swimming. And a lot of you have gone swimming in really big waves. A lot of you have been caught in a riptide. And you know what it's like. The only way to not drown in a riptide is to let go. And everything in you is saying, hang on, swim, swim. You can get to shore. No, you can't. Get to shore, get to shore. No, you can't. I know, I've been in. All right, so, let go. And we say, I don't know how to let go. And I'm back to Bartholomew. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Don't listen to thinking that says, I don't know how. I have to have an expert to teach me. An expert to teach you how to be what you are. What kind of an expert could that possibly be? How expensive would that kind of expert possibly be? It's the simplicity, the utter magnificent simplicity of being willing to hear again and to really hear deeply inside that what you cannot experience anything without what you're looking for being present. When you take your focus away from the thought, I've got to find it, to this absolutely magnificent news that not only is it already here, but see, if we say it's already here, people keep saying, well, but I have to find it, even though it's here, because I don't know that it's here. So just to step back yet again from that statement and to rest in the magnificence of, okay, let's see if it's true. Shut up. See if it's true. Is it true? Don't ever listen to anybody, especially this. Don't. Find out, is it true? Is it true? If you keep in your awareness, hey, wait a minute. What I'm looking for is present. What could that be? Now, a lot of people that follow the Ramana way say, who am I? Well, that doesn't work for a lot of people. But what does work is, well, what's here? What's here? What's here? Not focusing on any object or any thought or any experience or any emotion, but just that questioning edge of, hey, what's here? Do you really want to know? Or do you want to solve, in your mind, the problem that's in front of you? Because we really think that we solve our problems. We really do think that there is a mechanism in here that solves the problem of something that is moving faster than the speed of light and is broken up into 100,000 trillion particles of who knows what. But yes, we can take care of that. We can solve our problems. We can stop things from happening. We can make things happen. Listen, if it makes you peaceful to do that, then I say that's the way of your Tao. Do it. And turn off this YouTube or CD or whatever and go listen to somebody else. But you know what? I just got worn out, because, just because I did. I just got worn out of all that. And when you get worn out, really worn out, then there's nothing left than to say, I'm here. What does that even mean? What does that mean? I know I am not all the things that come and go, because Bartholomew said it, and I know it to be true. Anything that comes and goes is not that. Anything that comes and goes is not that. So what is that? What is it? People say they want to know. They want to know. But on investigation, that's not true. They want to know so they can what? Manipulate their life. They say this to me all the time. If only I was awake, then I would never be unhappy again. That I would never have a bad moment. That I would always be what? Creative and whatever their thing would be. That we always want something. Have you noticed? We always want something. It's so funny. We all want something. And it changes every moment. And we want something that we already are. It's kind of double talk, isn't it? It's those wonderful oxymorons. So, if you don't hear this and don't want to hear this, then the question would just be, what do you want? What do you want? And if you say you want to know what you are, but if you say you want to know God, then we've got two things going, don't we? You and God. So, my suggestion is simply my momentary suggestion. Drop the middleman. Just drop the middleman. Just see. Bartholomew said the scariest thing would be to trust what you're looking for really exists. Is it really there? Is it really there? Well, look, we all know it's there. We all know it's all there. Because most of you in this room and listening to CDs have been in everyone who is listening to this has been in the presence of something that was already that. And they recognized it as already that. So, blessed life. Blessed life. Blessed life. So, what's to do? Just be still. Be still. And if possible, stop being so interested in the movie that's going on and be interested in what is aware of it. And what's looking at it? What's looking at it? What's hearing it? What's hearing it? Here comes noise. No problem. It's okay, Justin, no problem. I'm almost done. It's no problem if there's noise. There's always going to be noise. There's always going to be something you don't like. You maybe not even like what you're hearing, and that's good too. Don't like what you're hearing, but just ask the question. Just ask the question. What is this thing that is aware of the fact that I don't like this? That this is nuts, that I have another plan. If you have another plan, follow your plan. This isn't the plan. It's simply a suggestion. That's it, a suggestion. Not the word. It's just words. And behind every word, behind everything, there is always, hey, something is awake to this. Something is aware of this. I mean, don't figure out what it is. Just see that it is. Don't look for what it is. Get excited that it is. You can't get away from this. And you can't find it. And you can't lose it. Your mind can say, I lost it. No. Nothing's lost. Nothing's lost. Including that wonderful sound. It could have been a much worse ringtone, right? I mean, it's wonderful. It doesn't matter. Do you understand? It doesn't matter whether it's the guys in there or the phone. It doesn't matter. What was aware of that? What was aware of your thinking, oh, thank goodness it wasn't mine. What is it? What is it? You cannot escape it. So here's a suggestion. Let's quit whining about our lives just for a little while. Just quit whining about our life, just for a little while. And ask, wait a minute, what is this aliveness that is aware of something to whine about? Let's just see if that isn't a little more interesting. A little more peaceful. A little more embracing. A little more loving. Something. Let's just see. It's just, the rest of it is just what's happening. No problem. Let it happen. And even if you think, I've got to control it, good. Think I've got to control it. But for heaven's sake, be awake enough to see if it worked. And if it works, say, oh, I know what I did. Then follow it and do it again. And see if it works again. Just, hey, let's wake up. To what? To nothing. Isn't that a joke? It's just like, all of a sudden, it's just like, can I see that across the room? Yeah, well, every moment can be wow. I mean, a big wow. Or a quiet wow. Every moment. Nothing needs to change. Nothing. Isn't that grand? What a life. And, if I dare, what a death. Because that won't matter either. You begin to be really aware that objects come and go. Have you noticed this is an object? Have you just noticed that? Have you noticed? So when you notice that objects come and go, all the time, emotions, thoughts, all they come and go. Wow, this comes and goes. What is here now, when everything comes and goes, will be here then. Not this. Aren't you glad this room will not be reproduced 100 years from now? There's the beautiful edifice. Well, I don't know, it might be. But anyway, here's the point. It's so simple. So let's go back to where we started. The simplicity of it. You could not notice anything if what you were looking for was not already doing the noticing. It is already doing the noticing. You don't have to make it notice. How are you gonna make 100 trillion things notice? Hey, everybody, let's get together and notice this thing. Stop. Let's just stop. Let's just stop. And just Tony Parsons says it's nothing being everything. And then, of course, it's everything being nothing. You know how that keeps going. But this nothing is not nothing. And I don't have to tell you that because you all know that. If you did not know who you really are, you would not have, in my estimation, continued to live this life. You all know how to get out of this game, one way or another, and you're still here. And why do you think that is? Because there's a part of you that knows. It knows.
Everyone awake knows this and has said it. You know this because you are this. Not because you're smart. Not because you're spiritual, dear God. Not because you're spiritual and holy and have done your work, whatever that would mean. It's because it is a wonderful send button that allows the whole thing to shut down and nothing there but 1,000 trillion somethings moving faster than the speed of light. So, no. Look, that's a promise. He made a promise. He didn't say, well, just try it, see. Promise. He said, be still and you'll know. Be still and you'll know. What does that mean, be still? Quit being so interested in all the movement of his life. It's going to go the way it goes. You will be inspired to do what you were inspired to do, good or bad. I don't want to be inspired to do bad things. Well, just watch your life. Every thought you have is loving, compassionate, uplifting, beautiful. Is that true? Then please, for heaven's sake, sit up here and go get yourself. I mean, come on. Come on. You know, come on. That's the other struggle with the clients. They don't want to think bad thoughts. And I keep trying to say, if you find a way not to think bad thoughts, please call me up. A bad thought is nothing. Watch it. It arises, it falls. A good thought, what happens? It arises, it goes. Have you noticed? It just goes. Where does it go? Does it go and build a karma that you have to live out? Have you ever seen a pile of karma anywhere? In your entire looking, have you ever found a pile of karma waiting for you to step into when you die? I mean, I'm serious. Have you ever found anything? We have to take people's word that there's this pile of karma waiting for you. Well, I say, let's not wait for anybody to teach us anything. Let us be the teacher to ourselves. Because in the end, it's all we've got. And it's all we need. You and this moment interfacing, what is it? What is it? Amazing. Just look around. Whoa. Something is aware of all this. Something created all of this. How can this be? Wow. Anyway. So, enough of that. Thank you all for coming. And I'll see you next month. To me, Richard, the freedom of it all, which is, are we at last ready to just believe what is recorded in all the sutras from the beginning and whatever we've done, they've all said at the core, hey, it's here, it's now. And then people ask me things like, well, how do I get to the now? But listen to our words, Richard. Don't they make you laugh? How do I get into the now? And then the delight is, can we just, for me anyway, Richard, it's just, can we relax into what is ever present and just find out what is here? You know, in the silent or noisy, what's here? What's here? And it reveals itself, you know. I don't think it's some mysterious thing. I think it's just so simple that we have truly overlooked the simplicity of this all. And as things get harder and harder on the planet, which may not be your experience, but it is mine, that things are getting more frightening for many people. People ask me why. And of course, who would know the answer? Who would be arrogant enough to say, I know why things are happening? But there's this wonderful thing that happens inside that says, if I just be quiet, sit down quietly, can I trust that what they say is true? That something magnificently unknowable called awareness, that's a word, right? Or God, another beautiful word. But can we just trust that it's there? And how do we do it? What a question. You know, the question is, can we stop the doing? We've heard it over and over. Can we stop the doing and just trust that whatever this is, this mysterious thing, is there for everyone? what I'm saying too is that it's ours. It's inside of us. It's not, we talk about, well, the I disappears and there's no small me okay. But the fact remains that every one of us, in my experience, when we just settle down and really trust that there is something inside of us that can answer that in a direct way. And then I talk to you, and then you tell me what comes out of the deepest part of you. And then it's like a wonderful game of back and forth. And then I take what you say with an open mind. And this is where I think, Richard, the world can unite, is around the realization that we can trust each other, ordinary people, you and I. I don't know about you, I consider myself ordinary, just ordinary. And that out of that wonder, if we just trust that there is, everybody says there is a divine intelligence that's running all of this. Well, let's trust that. What does that mean? That doesn't mean that we need to go to gurus, although if that's your way, of course. But given all of that, even in the middle of the presence of the most awakened guru that you could imagine, there's got to be your own truth. There's got to be. And when we stop looking for other people as the ones that know and see that there is a knowing that we all have, then out of that wonder comes a silent trust. And then you talk to me, I talk to you. 11 million people listen to Torah, and I bet you there were 11 million different experiences of the same thing. This is what I think is so wonderful, because when all the stories break down, Richard, what have we got left? We've only got what I would call ourself. We're only really, when the stories all go away, there's just what's here. That's it. And when we ask on the deepest level, what is the reality of the story in the moment of all this? What is awareness? And is there a me? And is there a this? And is there a that? If we just stop all the questioning, and if I could be rude enough to say, just turn off all the teachings and just be the laboratory unto ourself. Finally, I think it ends up there. And I want to tell you, Richard, I really think that this is an extremely generous creation, because I think that it points back to the truth of the absolute magnificent luminescent being of being. It points to it all the time. It just points to it. But we're so busy in our storyline about what we are experiencing and who we are, and are we this or are we that, instead of just, excuse me for being blunt, to shut up and sit down, and I'm speaking to myself as well, and just get very close to what's happening here. This is the laboratory, and the stories are beautiful, and I love them. And are they true? Are they not true? Oh, Richard, I wouldn't dream of answering such a question. But I know one thing. There is something existing right here. That I know. Something exists. I can't name it. I can't touch it. I can't talk about what it feels like outside. I just know there is a knowing. There's something alive here. Aliveness. Not Mary-Margaret Moore alive. It's an aliveness. And so to me, the innocence that we were talking about is the innocence that keeps opening to the moment brand new, brand new, brand new.
The teaching is kind of confusing because it's woven with what exists and what doesn't exist. And when you weave those two together, you're not so sure which thread is which. And so then let's just take some parameters of non-duality teaching. And for instance, one might be that the self doesn't really exist because existentially. In other words, it exists as a thought, woven together with some things that don't exist as if they do, and some things that seem to exist and said that they don't. It's a huge, huge confusion, And and the other thing is this, that we should get somewhere, that we should actually, the assumption that we should be getting somewhere, that we live in this innocent state, because I don't think there's any reason to live in an innocent state where everything is just like, duh, even if it's beautiful, I mean, because we have a game that we play with a tool we have, which is a mental tool that makes different creations and projects time and sequence and cause and effect is all projected, let's say. And that's just the game we're playing. And we've been dealt this hand of cards, and, we're having fun playing it. And I suppose the real point of anything is that we would be a better player. Because I don't think the point is to retire and to retire from the game. I mean, there's several ways to retire. One is to, turn in your piece. And the other way is just to go frozen and kind of just not play anymore and just, hang out in some kind of nothingness and have all your relationships break down. But I don't think that's the point either, I mean, the point must be to be a better player in the game of mental projection. And if you're not identified with that projection and don't think it's all that meaningful, it's just kind of a good joke. I think it makes you a better player.
Let me ask you what you mean by a better player. I mean, where are we going? I mean, so what's the goal of being? See, when you say better player, I get a little nervous because what if I'm not a better player? So. Well,
let's just say more contented player, because it's very individual, just what floats your boat,
Yeah, I love that. Say it again. What was your word? Say it again.
Well, I'm just saying, okay, look, humanity has a mind, and it seems to distinguish itself from animals by being able to remember vivid pictures.
Yes.
And these vivid pictures are not only like photographs and thought patterns of like what the photograph means, but it's also a feeling pattern.
Yes.
Like, hey, that was a dangerous thing, or that was a really exciting, fun thing. And so then all these things are like it's a body response and a picture and a interpretation all rolled into one.
Yeah.
And then that kind of distinguishes us from animals, which have apparently operate more on something called an instinctual pattern. And they just do what they do because that's how they are, ducks fly north in the summer and south in the winter or something like that. And really, they probably don't, have any great feelings that this is a good thing or a bad thing. And they just do it. And I don't know, because they had some teaching traditions. It's called neti, right? I'm not this, I'm not that. Okay, so then I'm not this, I'm not that. It could be two ways. One way is like I just lost interest, like, oh my, I'm not a piece of cement on the sidewalk. I lose interest in it. I walk on it every day, but I don't really, really get involved with it. I just lost interest. Neti, I'm not that. Or another way is to try to push that cement away, like, oh, mind, I'm not a mind. I got to push it away, Somehow I got to get away from it. I've got to escape it. Kill the ego. And that kind of neti, I think is very damaging. Damaging in what sense, Even some teachers will say, well, there's no individual, so there's no one to be damaged. And so that's really nice, But I mean, they're totally denying the game that we're all playing, and all the teachers are playing the game, believe me, at least all the ones I ever met. And I hope so.
You hope so? What?
I hope they're playing the game, I mean, they all have a mind. They all have preferences of what they like to eat.
If they're playing a game. If they're alive, Richard, if we're alive, we're playing a game. I mean, let's just I love that. Of course, that's true. But here we go again. I seem to be on a one track here. But the excitement, let's go back to nete nete, okay? For me, the excitement of that is not in a mental thought of I'm not that, I'm not that. What happens when I do nete nete, because I've been doing all of this for a long time, and all of these things have come before me in one way or another to experience. And when we get to that one, the excitement is not in I'm not that, but in what is it that is alive and living, that is even saying the words not that, not that. It throws me, put it this way, it throws me deeper into the absolute wonder of being. Look, Richard, to me, and this may be too outrageous, but I think that God, if you want to call it that, the divine, whatever, played an incredible game by hiding itself in everything. That's why we can't find it in a particular place, because it's in everything. And so even in saying nete nete, it's in those words itself. The fact that I'm saying it is the hidden wonder. So to me, it's all of it. You may not agree, and it'd be wonderful if you didn't, but this delight that it's hidden in everything, Richard. Is that so? Whatever game, non-duality is the what's happening now, and a lot of things have come and gone, and all to me, the divine principle, the awareness itself, the unnameable, incredible whateverness hides in everything. And when that became true for me, and not just some kind of a nice thing, when it became really true for me, then everything in some magic way became all right, even the stuff that I didn't like. And the interesting thing here, Richard, was I think there was the thought that when that happened, that problems would dissolve and I wouldn't have any this in my life and that in my life. That wasn't my experience. All I know is whatever shows up, that's, if I could use the word, that's God. And if I could even push it and be a little outrageous, it's God in drag. It's God, and pardon me, but we have to have a little fun here. It's just the delight of it's everything. And what that did for me, Richard, was huge relaxation. That was the key for me. Huge relaxation. I don't have to look for it anymore, because even in the looking, it's there. Even in the non-looking, it's there. Even in the asking and trying to find it, it's there. In the person who doesn't care about finding it, it's there. And that took away all the separation.
Somehow we feel that we're deserving. So we deserve the best. So like somebody has a disease and they don't just go down to the clinic, they go not even just to the hospital, they go to the best hospital, maybe 5 states over, somewhere, some famous hospital that's specialized in heart disease or cancers or whatever they feel like is going to be the top specialist, And I think we're doing the same thing with spirituality. We're looking for that best guru.
Yes.
Or for so long we're doing it. And I would have to say that I found a few. And what I realized is when I just started to come and do this show, okay, the best guru really didn't need this show because they had a huge following already. I didn't have any following, I needed them. And so then I was talking mostly with emerging teachers, let's call it. And it turned out I got a lot more out of emerging teachers because I just felt like, whoa, God, if this guy could do it, I could do it too, I just felt like, whereas that super guru, he had such a marvelous life from the time he was 4 years old or something. There were so many circumstances there that I could say, no, that's a preparation. I don't have that preparation. He's got 40 years of these wonderful experiences that morph from one to the next to the next to the next. How could that be me? It was just so far away. It was more like entertainment. And at the time I thought it was a serious quest, but really it wasn't, because I had a deep ingrained belief that that could never be me. And
Richard, this is so perfect. That's my point. You have made this my point, because once we have the concept that there are special people, it instantly, Richard, we're separate. And this is the story. And I agree that the storyline is going, and it goes a lot. But I'm asking us, isn't it time to question the story? Is it really true? Look, the ones that I know personally, that who the world would say are the great gurus, when I speak to them personally and ask them, people would say, "Oh, I want to be just like you. How can I be?" And their answer was, "You and I are different." Really? Are we really different? Question this. And it is those teachers, whatever you want to call them, that throw us back on ourselves to doubt that statement, that it's all a story, that they have this experience and that experience. Well, I go back to what I said, that God is in everything. It's in the worst experience we ever had. It's in the best. And if there's only one, then no matter who is having the experience, there is no separation.
There's so many interesting things happening right now. And one of them is kind of like this internet explosion where we're all connected.
Yes.
And what the effect of that is that the major networks are kind of breaking down. In other words, who wants the great big show, and actually who wants to put on the great big show, because it costs millions and millions of dollars a week. And it doesn't support itself anymore. And so I think that maybe even the old time teaching, when the big guru was up there, is breaking down also, because all the protocol around him, you can't really get close to him. There's definitely what do I want to say? There's an expectation, and there's an expectation, even if it's not his fault, or her fault. There's an expectation on all the people that come to him that I'm going to get something. I'm coming here to get something. And believe you me, there's an expectation on his part that he's going to give something, because he doesn't have a chat. And if you ask a bunch of stupid questions, he'll move you on, or, talk to somebody else. And so that it's very orchestrated. So that whole system is a belief in separation before it even starts. And so I think that has to, now that we have, okay, let's just say it this way, that before there was no other way, how could one person talk to millions of people? And of course they can't, but somehow on the internet we can appear, we can have a conversation just one-on-one, and not from the grand to the small. And then somehow it can be put in another way where we are all just the same, or that reflection of oneness, and that it can be evident, that we can just see it.
There is a knowing inside of all of us. If we stop this external and take what comes to us, say from the internet, and what is that resonance? It takes us deep inside. If we will stop the word exchange and go deeply into what is being experienced. And what do we run into? We always, Richard, run into the same thing. We run into, there is something experiencing. There is something experiencing. There are things to be experienced, objects, but whoa, all of a sudden, again and again, we go back and we find the same subject, the same thing is experiencing this moment as is experiencing the next, and then the next. And here comes the excitement. Whoa, what is that? What is that? And it doesn't come up as a philosophical question. It comes up as a noticing of, you know what? I feel the same, even though I feel differently. There is something the same here, and then the same there. And as the internet presents us with all this wonderful, wonderful differences and wonders, what is it that pulls you deep inside that then releases you into the place where you just know, wow, wow. It's just like, the relaxation of knowing that you are always what you are.
You've given your lifetime to talking to people, which we could just go back to your words and say encouraging people.
Yes.
You know, some people have a inner feeling to share some discovery that they've made. I'm not so sure I'm not trying to share a discovery that I made. I'm just trying to facilitate those that have made strong discoveries.
Well, I hope those.
How does that happen that we're trying to do that? I guess it's happened all through the ages, but I mean, is there some kind of a urgency, or it just seems like the world is breaking down and we're scared, or what's going on?
Yes. Okay. Okay. Here's the other big question that's always comes up. People are always asking me, wherever I talk and whatever. There comes the big question: why? Why has it been created with all of this? Why is all of this happening now in this seemingly disruptive way and painful way? And of course, who knows? Who would be so arrogant as to say, well, I know. But what you just spoke to, Richard, is one huge possibility, is that if we do get backed up against the wall badly enough, and all of the outside world no longer can answer the question, we do come to the realization, hey, but there's somebody here. Something is here. We say somebody is here because we experience ourselves as a separate thing. But on examination, we find out something quite different. It's just amazing. It's amazing. Is that the purpose of all this disruption? I would be absolutely never that foolish as to answer a question like that. But it's a possibility that there will be opportunities all over the globe for just this, coming inside and finding out, who are we really? Are we really separate? Are you really separate from me, Richard? You don't seem to be. You're right there. And of course you could say that's foolish, but it feels that way. It feels that way. I look in your eyes and it feels that way to me. It feels that way. So I guess when there's just us left alone, seemingly, we find out that alone is impossible, that something else is ever possible. Anyway, that's my experience.
So we're having a pretty good time talking with Mary-Margaret Moore and speaking to very many subjects about, like, what really are we doing? What is it that we're doing looking for this information, and what is it we're doing offering this information or these I call them hints maybe, but something about it has to be practical, something about it has to work, and something about it has to make a difference in your life.
Yes.
And otherwise, what's the point, It's kind of like changed a lot of our lives, getting involved with listening and getting involved with projecting a message. Is it a message of hope? I don't know. It's a message of ease. Is it a message where people can get along? Maybe that's enough, maybe. We're looking at a lot of different ways to speak about what life is, and some of it seems kind of radical. And I guess we call that non-duality, let's just say. But other kinds of teachings are more logical. And a logical teaching might be that if you're having a bum day, what's the chance? Let's just say that there are. And time is real, and past is real today, and tomorrow is real. Let's just go by conventional wisdom. But even logically, if you're having a bum day, what's the chance of you having a better day tomorrow? Out of a bum day comes another bum day, right? And somewhere the chain has to be broken. If you're happy and joyous today, what's the chance of you being happy and joyous tomorrow or in the next moment? It's probably pretty high, At least you're on a roll, I mean, just get straight logical without any kind of interior knowing or anything, I mean, and then so many teachings just say it's up to you to kind of break the chain. You've got to just look and see, maybe we're talking about positive thoughts and negative thoughts, but another part of the teachings will say that, who can control your next thought anyhow? If it's negative. And there's truth to that too. But I mean, just to realize that it's not getting you anywhere, except deeper in the pit, it's a pretty big realization.
Often, to me, it sounds like we're moving from being unhappy, and if we follow a path, we will end up being happy. That seems to be the thought. That's not been my experience. It's more like the waves that roll, and then they go down, and then they go up, and they go down, they go up. And to me, to let go of the idea that it's going to be a steady climb up into the clouds of, heaven and bliss, that's just, it's a great story, and maybe it has worked for some people, but, not me. Something enters in to change everyone's life. And we can call it whatever we want, the divine or awareness or God or your favorite guru, whoever it would be. Something comes in, but just life itself comes in and kind of shakes things up. And when that shaking up happens, therein is the possibility, back to the medicine wheel, that out of that placement of difficulty, there will arise some kind of urge that moves you to go to the next placement on the wheel. And this is how I see life, that we get moved. I mean, we can talk esoterically, who is we and where are we going and so on. But my experience is we're trying to stop hurting. Well, how can you build trust if you don't have trust? And my answer is really very simple, Richard, because the only way, I didn't come into any of this with any great trust. I came in with, the thing that pushed me forward was questioning, how do you move from being frightened to not being frightened? How do you, how does this work? And trust was never even a word for me. But finally, we all get, if we just pay attention, and this is, you talked about it yourself, when we finally begin to pay attention, to become, here I go again, conscious, meaning not struggling up from the depths, and it's just like, whoa, are you awake to the moment? I mean, are you here? Are you really here, or are you wandering around in your mind? Because what I discovered was I was wandering around in my head, trying to find answers in my mind, while all the time there was all around me in some way that I had nothing to do with, and it's everyone's experience. This is nothing special. Everyone has this. There comes the trust. All of a sudden, you know what to do.
So trust must be something like, trust means that an absence of fear, I guess, an okayness. And then how do you learn to trust when you don't have trust, Okay, well, I mean, how do you learn to not have fear when you have fear? I mean,
you learn that you learn, well, I don't know what anybody else said. I learned that in the middle of fear and the middle of distrust, there was something absolutely reliable. And what was that? There was something present in every moment that was absolutely the same. And I could trust that. Every time, no matter how frightened I would get, and it got stronger and stronger, that there was something backing the whole thing up.
Somehow that has to be, acknowledged.
Yes.
Sometime.
Yes.
Now, I mean,
Yes.
Is there a way that, and then I guess that's what every kind of a teaching, religion, everything else is all about, is about somehow trying to get somebody to acknowledge that. And, you can acknowledge it just out of your some kind of mental agreement, but somehow you have to acknowledge it at a deeper level. And I think you shared that, like as a young child, that something in you knew, that you called it that the world is fair. In other words, the world is fair. I took it to mean that everybody has the same apparatus, that
Absolutely.
to know who they are.
Perfect. That's exactly what I better said on your side. Yes, and this is what all of these years and all the travels and all of everything that's happened. This is the thing that keeps resonating again and again, Richard, which is everyone has the same, in your words, apparatus. It's built in. You know, there is an exit button to this game where you can play within the game of life and at the same time have access to the timeless. There, it's built in. It's built into the game. It's built into the game.
It's kind of quizzical, like in one side, it's an enormous and beautiful confidence to say that the gravity of love is pulling us to the sea, or however you'd like to say it, but the whole metaphor that we've been using of just no matter how the boulders in our stream are, we'll go up, over, around, and through. Somehow we'll make it past there, and then everything that you are doing in your life, or my little TV show, or whatever's happening, is all a part of that. All part of that path, or creating that path. And in a way, it's kind of like just do your thing and don't trouble over it. I don't say I'm really troubling over it, but I'm just saying, well, mind has an idea called marketing, or like, the message meets the, I'm not saying we should have, what do you call those, groups of people that discuss products,
I've never done one of those, but I'll take your word.
I'm not trying to say that we should have user comments so that we can adjust our teaching, but somehow I was kind of wanting to look at it and say there would be a smoother way to go, and you're saying, well, it's happening anyhow, and just you continue with what you're doing. And
no, I'm saying something even deeper. I'm saying trust that the way will show you the way. Absolutely trust that the way will show you the way. But if anybody hears those words and resonates, then they will begin. See, when you talk about your show, what you're doing is you're putting an energetic out into the collective, all right? And when the collective hears this, the ones that do, everybody's not going to hear it, but the ones that hear it, it goes into the collective. And as it changes the collective in its own magic way, because all you're doing, as you know, is just sending energetic vibrational frequencies out into, all through these wonderful machines we're using, and they affect. They have an effect. And the person who needs to will be clicking on and going to go to somebody else and tumble into you. And then they'll go, oh, well, what's that? And then in an instant, something will connect, and who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Lives can change. I'm just saying, we just need to trust the process. Just this amazing process of life, And then, so body dies, mind dies. Fine. What's next? People ask me, well, what do you think is going to happen when we die? And my answer is, it sounds very flip, but I do mean it. And I say, surprise me. Whatever it is, it's going to, here it is.
You have such a wonderful confidence.
Well,
you exude confidence, and it's like that's a trust, but that's that's your beautiful teaching, I think. I don't know, just it's so beautiful.
But part of the beauty and wonder of this is that every one of us has access to the timeless. I live here in the Southwest, and the Indians would weave their rugs, and at the end they would leave one line leading out that was different from all others, and it's called the spirit line. And that was the line at which the spirit then would end out of the rug and be free to go back into the createdness, all right? That's my understanding of these lives that we're living, that we have that spirit line, and it doesn't happen when we die. It happens all the time, that the timeless enters, and the teachers who I really, really admire, when they speak to this, my heart just jumps, because it's not often said, but there is, within this so-called game, there is always access to the timeless in ways that we don't know, but it happens all the time. It happens all the time. And all I'm saying is, I think more of us are now speaking what has been known certainly in the Southwest.
This woven piece has an exit, and
it does.
In a way, it's an entrance, because when we start to say time, everyone has access to the timeless. Time is nested in the timeless. And,
beautiful. There you have it. Well, now, so here we go. So let's take this the next step. So then, in every moment of time, this is how I heard what you said, Richard. In every moment of time, the timeless resides within that.
No, vice versa.
Or vice versa. Okay.
No, vice versa. Every moment of time resides within the timeless.
Okay, and
so then there's nowhere to look for it, really. There's just a kind of like a backing off, or like a sigh, timeless is just what is. Really, it's not any kind of like thing that we imagine it to be.
You've got it, Richard. And you look at what you did when you went that. You didn't go. You went. It's exactly. That utter relaxation. Can you feel it? It's just another instant away. And anyway, throughout time, people have just said, just shut up and sit down and know who you are.
It's so beautiful, because like that rug is just that woven rug is just our woven life of conceptual life. And if there's a way out of it, in any time, really, because you don't have to get out of life. You just have to drop your concepts, even for a second, and blow its cover in a way, like just kind of peek under there and say, whoa.
Well, Richard, you sound like me. Be careful. You sound exactly. We sound like,
Okay, so what does that mean? That means that every teaching has to have the string that goes out. In other words, it's like we have to have a free gate, an open door, If the teaching doesn't have an open door and say, anytime you want to leave this teaching, drop it, it's only a pile of concepts. And then it's totally valuable,
Those are the ones I admire. Those are the hallmark of a teacher that I would not want to follow is one who would say, you have to stay in the confines of this teaching. And the minute they say that, to me, is the time I would get up and, give my last donation and leave. Because there would be a knowing in that instant that it's a closed system. And all of these systems need to be open. And the excitement is, if we can take the rug analogy even further, and these are your words coming back at you, the timeless is what is weaving the tapestry of our life. So it's the timeless that is weaving it.
There you go.
So it's the timeless that's in it, and then there's this wonderful game about, well, we're in this and we forget, it would seem, that we are the timeless, and then the timeless comes back in to say, whoop, here I am in some way or other, and then it goes on, and I don't know. I just think it's a wonderful motion.